Chapter 1998. Jun Changshao did not intend to avoid the wedding. Instead, he received a report from a member of the Drizzle Hall that a certain galaxy had mysteriously disappeared. Just as Jian Guishu had guessed, could it be the Sky Demonic Emperor? To be sure, he had to investigate thoroughly, even if it was the eve of the wedding. I'm sorry. On the way, Jun Changshao felt guilty. The wedding was imminent, but he found an excuse to leave. He was such a jerk. Sigh. The system complained, the host has a fear of marriage. Rose of Flowers, who was in the Sect of all times, was angry at first, but she was relieved when she found out that her husband was going to do something important. She returned to the bedroom, touched the phoenix coronet on the dressing table, and said, "I'll wait for you to come back." Under normal circumstances, if she said this, she would probably be separated by life and death. The next day, the wedding day, all the major planes and forces gathered at the foot of the Sect of all times. Some of them came early and stayed in the nearby cities, while others just arrived. Although they wore different clothes and had different styles, they all brought generous gifts. Everyone. After a while, Su Xiaoma appeared at the foot of the mountain and said, "We can go up." Everyone carefully walked up the stairs. The closer they got to the Sect of all times, the more they felt a sense of pressure and heaviness. The foundation of a sect might not have been established for a long time. It mainly depended on the strength of the sect. After completing the legendary mission, the Sect of all times had greatly improved. There were as many half-step divination and divination realms as there were dogs. Moreover, they had lived in the Iron Bone Mountain for a long time, so naturally, their aura had increased. It was not an exaggeration. With the current strength of the Sect of all times, they could definitely sweep through the upper universe. It was just too terrifying. Therefore, for the Patriarch's wedding, all the major planes and forces came from far away. So scary. The pressure is getting stronger and stronger. Everyone walked up step by step until they stopped in front of the gate with the plaque Sect of all times. They were greeted by a soul-shaking pressure. There were many powerful sector lords who came this time. Although they were usually tall and mighty, standing in front of the Sect of all times, they instantly seemed infinitely small. "Please." Su Xiaoma smiled. Everyone looked at each other and walked in with reverence. However, just as he stepped into the Sect of all times, he was deeply shocked when he saw the disciple who was in charge of opening the door. His indolent appearance and casual posture indicated that this person was definitely not simple. "Excuse me." A sector lord clasped his hands. "What is your status in the Sect of all times?" "Him?" Su Xiaoma said. "He's in charge of opening and closing the door." "Ah!" Everyone was shocked. Such an existence that could shine in the dark night was actually just a disciple in charge of opening and closing the door. The Sect of all times was full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. No wonder he dared to confront the celestial demonic emperor. Seeing that they were all staring at him with admiration in their eyes, Wudi was speechless. "I've already tried my best to make myself invisible." All the fighters entered the Sect of all times and looked at the vast training grounds and the majestic hall, but they were all very calm. A disciple in charge of closing the door was already so amazing. No matter how grand the Sect of all times was, it was still reasonable. "Welcome to my Sect of all times." At this time, Yuan Gongzi walked out of the hall and introduced himself. "My surname is Yuan, Vice Patriarch." "Patriarch Yuan." All the big shots clasped their hands. They didn't specially add the word vice. It could be seen that they were all very experienced. "Everyone," Yuan Gongzi said, "today is my patriarch's wedding. Have you all prepared?" Some words couldn't be said too directly. It was enough to stop at a certain point. As expected, everyone wasn't stupid. They all took out their gifts, and the Sect of all times disciples were in charge of collecting and recording them. Spirit stones, ores, herbs, etc., everything was there. "Thank you, everyone." Yuan Gongzi clasped his hands and said, You all can go back now. Hearing this, everyone instinctively turned around, but when they were about to lift their feet, they were all stunned. What? Go back? A strong fighter said, Patriarch Yuan, we are here to attend the wedding. Yes. Yuan Gongzi said, My sect has already accepted your wedding gifts. Everyone almost fell over. Did he mean that the wedding was a wedding gift? Patriarch Yuan. An old man smiled and said, This old man came from thousands of miles away, hoping to attend the wedding. They had already handed over their gift money, so they had to get some back, even if it was just a cup of wine and a bite of food. Otherwise, it would be too unjust. Sorry, Yuan Gongzi said. The Patriarch's wedding has been postponed. Those who want to attend the wedding, please go back and wait for the notice. When this sentence was said, all the fighters instantly cracked. F***ck. The wedding was postponed? Why didn't they say anything in advance? Also, since they weren't going to get married, why did they still take our gift money? This was robbery. It was a blatant robbery. Everyone's anger was immediately written on their faces, but when they saw the sect of all time's disciples surrounding them, shaking their shoulders and shaking their heads, looking fierce, they quickly retreated. That's fine. The old man said tactfully, This old man will come another day. After saying that, he took small steps and left. As soon as he left, everyone hurriedly followed. Just as they walked out of the mountain gate, they heard Yuan Gongzi's voice. Since everyone is looking forward to the Patriarch's wedding so much, after choosing another auspicious date, we will definitely send the invitation again. Plop. Everyone fell to the ground. It seemed that they had to ask for their gift money again. This kind of extortion was all done by Yuan Gongzi alone, and it had nothing to do with Jun Changshao. At this moment, he had already entered the star sector where the plane disappeared and was actively investigating. It was a pity. When he came to the scene of the incident, there were no clues. Are you sure there is a plane here? Jun Changshao asked. Yes. The Drizzle Hall member said. What plane disappeared? Jun Changshao asked. The Drizzle Hall member thought for a while and replied, According to the warriors of the nearby plains, it was the Yingyuan world. It used to be very glorious, but it was almost abandoned due to civil strife. Abandoned? Jun Changshao was stunned. If the Sky Devil Emperor was still alive, his strength would not have recovered, and he would definitely need to devour planes. But was it useful to choose such a plane? Or did the abandoned plane disintegrate on its own? Planes are the same as humans, they will grow old, get sick, and die. The system said, maybe it reached its limit and turned into cosmic dust. In that case, Jun Changshao smiled bitterly. I worried too much. Let's go. The system said, quickly go back and get married, don't let the guests wait too long. Jun Changshao could only turn back. On the way back, he received information from the Drizzle Hall, saying that a certain star sector plane had also disappeared. When he arrived at the location, he found that it was the same abandoned plane as before. There's a problem. Jun Changshao frowned and immediately ordered the disciples of the various star sectors to carefully investigate the abandoned planes. It was fine if they did not investigate, but once they investigated, they received shocking news. At least 100 planes had disappeared into thin air. The system was silent. It was understandable that 1 or 2 planes had been exhausted and collapsed, but 100 planes had disappeared. Even a fool could see that there was a problem. Patriarch. At this time, a member reported, 10 planes of the Blue Ocean coefficient have all disappeared in a day. A deserted plane? 7 second class, 2 quasi-first class, and 1 first class. Damn it. Jun Changshao said angrily, the Sky Devil Emperor is indeed alive. He was basically sure that the disappearance of the hundreds of abandoned planes was related to that guy. Now, it seemed that he did not intend to hide and directly attacked the planes that had creatures and were not low-level. Whoosh! Jun Changshao flew toward the Blue Ocean coefficient at top speed. When he arrived, before he even reached the crime scene, he smelled an extremely strong demonic aura. Previously, it was all speculation. Now it could be confirmed. Patriarch. At this time, another member of the Drizzle Hall reported, "All the planes of the tailing coefficient are gone." Jun Changshao frowned. Although the tailing coefficient was adjacent to the blue ocean coefficient, there was still quite a distance between them. Not only did the Sky Devil Emperor rush over, but he had also devoured all the planes. This meant that not only had he recovered from his injuries, but his strength was also more terrifying than before. "Go back," the system said. "The host may not be his match." "I can't go back." Jun Changshao continued to fly toward the tailing coefficient. Obviously, he wanted to stop the Sky Devil Emperor from harming the common people. Without Third Brother and Monkey King's help, how could he win? It was not a big problem. There was also the soul bomb. At this moment, Jun Changshao was already determined to die. The poor Rose of Flowers was still waiting for him in the Sect. Her phoenix coronet and robe were neatly placed on the dressing table, and she was fantasizing about letting him see her most beautiful on the day of the wedding. A few days later, Jun Changshao came to a desolate star region. Why was it desolate? Because there used to be dozens of planes here, but now they were all gone. They had all disappeared. Damn it! Jun Changshao clenched his fists and said, "I'm one step late again." However, during this time, he gradually found a pattern from the disappeared planes, so he took out the starry sky map and carefully deduced. The final conclusion was that if the other party continued to act, it was likely that he would go to the star region where the eternal world was located. "Oh no," Jun Changshao said in shock, "something big is going to happen." Chapter 1999. Whoosh, whoosh. In a certain peaceful galaxy, tentacle-like gloomy demonic aura suddenly sprang out. They passed through the void, merged into the various dimensions, and then sank deep into the soil. Looking at the other end of the demonic aura, one could see Lingli sitting cross-legged in the universe with a smile on his face. In the past 3 months, he had absorbed countless deserted dimensions and obtained weak abilities from them. Finally, he had accumulated to a very objective level. In the process of devouring, Lingli had a new understanding of the devouring demonic technique. Thus, he did not need to go there himself. He could devour from a distance just by releasing the demonic aura. What was even more terrifying was that he could split into many strands. This understanding was like adding wings to a tiger for Lingli. So, after a short consideration, he decided to give up on devouring the deserted dimensions. Instead, he locked his eyes on the resource-rich dimensions. Jin you will be resurrected soon. Unlike the celestial demonic emperor who wreaked havoc in order to achieve hegemony and pursue eternal life, Lingli only had one wish in his heart, which was to resurrect the dead Mu Jin. For the person he loved, he chose to destroy the world. A proper infatuated lover. But from another point of view, he was a complete lunatic. Here, I suggest that the reader remain absolutely clear-headed and not do stupid things like destroying the universe for love. Withdraw. At this moment, Lingli spread out his hands. The demonic aura that spread out was quickly withdrawn. The dimensions that were controlled quickly withered. An endless stream of energy flowed into his body. His strength was quickly improved. In fact, after absorbing the deserted dimensions, his strength had been restored to the state where the celestial demonic emperor was not injured. Now that he had absorbed the vitality of the dimensions, he was really stronger. Everyone was mocking Jun Changshao for being a cheat. But now, Lingli was the cheat. Even Jun Changshao had to admit defeat when he saw the speed at which he increased his strength through merging the dimensions. It was not satisfying. He had to continue absorbing more dimensions. Lingli left the completely absorbed tailing system and continued to fly to other galaxies. If no one stopped him, and if there were no accidents, he would definitely turn all the dimensions in the upper universe into his food until he peaked at the mystery of eternal life. Whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh. In another galaxy, the tentacle-like demonic aura split into countless numbers and continued to merge into the dimensions. Then, it easily absorbed the origin and all the resources inside, including all the living beings. After a few times, Ling Li's strength had greatly increased. The most direct feeling was that the demonic qi was becoming more and more sinister and dense. At this moment, Ling Li had already surpassed the celestial demonic emperor at his peak, and he had not even reached the upper limit. There was still a lot of room for improvement. It was no exaggeration to say that as long as there was enough food, his strength would be limitless. The current me. Ling Li clenched his fists tightly and said with a cold look in his eyes, I should be able to fight with Jun Changshao, right? It was long enough, but because he was too cautious, he didn't dare to make a move. No. Ling Li shook his head and said, we still have to continue devouring existential planes until we have invincible strength. It won't be too late to destroy the Sect of all times then. He destroyed the Sect of all times not only because of the grudge between them, but also because he wanted to get rid of the biggest obstacle to his devouring of the upper universe. Swish. Ling Li went to 2 more galaxies and absorbed hundreds of planes. He reached a new level in the great art of heaven-devouring and transforming demon. Devouring became easier and easier, and he didn't need to go out anymore. Jun Changshao should already know that I'm taking it so brazenly. Could he be looking for me? If I go to the eternal world now, will he be surprised? Thinking of this, a sinister smile appeared at the corner of Ling Li's mouth, and the devil qi around him became extremely terrifying. The galaxy where the eternal world was located. If one looked down from a god's perspective, one would find that there were thousands of existential planes in this area. In Jun Changshao's idea, the central area was the eternal world, like the holy land of martial arts. It was surrounded by major existential planes, and then a transmission formation would be set up, so that it could be fully connected. To put it bluntly, it was like a country. The eternal world was the capital, and the scattered existential planes were the provincial capitals. Jun Changshao also had the idea of breaking through the space barrier between the upper and lower universes, including the mortal continent, so that it could become a county and let more creatures receive advanced martial arts education. He even decided to imitate Qin Shi Huang, unifying the language, the measurement, the planning of a new martial arts system, and the grading of treasures and resources. It had to be said. This was a huge project, and if it was completed, it would be a real domain. Jun Changshao would also be regarded as the domain master, as the founder of a new era, and his name would go down in history. Of course, at present it was still very far away. Especially when it was just beginning to take shape, it would face a fatal blow because, whoosh, whoosh. On this day, the majestic devil qi spread from all directions, and the momentum was so great that it was like a dark cloud passing through, and all major existential planes were suddenly plunged into endless darkness. What's going on? Everyone's eyes were filled with horror. When the darkness came, it was accompanied by a strong aura of death. Oh no! In the Sect of all times, the old man Taishian stood in front of the starry light curtain, looking at the area covered by devil qi, and said in surprise, "Hurry up and activate the realm protection formation." Buzz! In an instant a super-large defensive bounded domain was quickly established. However, the eternal world was protected, but the newly migrated existential planes were not. They were like shaky boats, facing the stormy waves of devil qi, trembling. "Let's go," Gu Zhaoxi said. "Let's go out and have a look." "No." Jian Guishu hurriedly stopped him. "This devil qi is very terrifying. Maybe the celestial devil emperor is here." Gu Zhaoxi immediately gave up on the idea of going out. If it was the celestial devil emperor's subordinates, he was confident that he could fight them. "Hurry up." Jian Guishu said. Inform Jun Patriarch. No. The old man Taishin shook his head and said, the devil chi outside contains some kind of hindrance, and we can't send the message out at all. Jian Guishu said helplessly, let's leave it to fate. In fact, he didn't tell everyone that the devil chi outside was more terrifying than that released by the celestial devil emperor, which meant that his strength had been unprecedentedly improved. Whoosh! Suddenly, a flowing light flew out from the devil chi all over the sky, and they saw a swift and fierce figure hanging in the sky like a high and mighty devil king. Tisk, tisk. He was a little surprised and said, why are there so many existential planes in this galaxy? Is it specially prepared for me? Ha ha ha! The gloomy and cold laughter resounded through the universe and into the ears of the creatures in the existential planes, which made them even more terrified. Warriors often had a premonition when they encountered danger, but today it was very strong, and there was no room for maneuver. The premonition was very accurate. Ling Li didn't inherit the villain's shortcoming of talking too much, and chose to directly attack. Thousand Devil Chi. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Streams of devil chi emerged from his body and flew in all directions, quickly penetrating the space barriers of the existential planes, deep into the ground and seizing the origin. Withdraw. Ling Li opened his 10 fingers. Whoosh whoosh. In an instant, the existential planes locked in by the devil chi quickly withered and then disappeared into thin air in the universe. At this point, the existential planes that Jun Changshao had painstakingly planned and spent a lot of manpower and resources to move over had completely become food in Ling Li's mouth. This was a sumptuous meal, and after completely absorbing and refining them, his strength had increased significantly. Ah! Ling Li raised his head and laughed. He finally found the feeling of invincibility. In the Sect of all times, Jian Guishu and the others captured the scene of all the existential planes disappearing with their naked eyes or minds, and their faces were all filled with shock and horror. This was too terrifying. Don't worry. At this moment, Ling Li turned around and looked at the lonely eternal world, his eyes burning with passion. It's your turn. Although they had swallowed a lot of existential planes just now, it was after all just an appetizer. This super-huge existential plane in front of them was the main course, and if they could absorb it, it would be absolutely wonderful. Whoosh whoosh! Ling Li spread his arms, and monstrous devil chi gushed out. The extent of the devil chi was the same as the size of the eternal world, and in the end, it wrapped up like a black cloth. To deal with this kind of super-huge world, they definitely couldn't absorb it by insertion, they had to break through it with a professional attitude without any blind spots. Whoosh whoosh! Whoosh whoosh! The terrifying devil chi gradually attached to the realm protection formation. Because the power was too terrifying, one could clearly see from inside that the boundary was solidifying and then gradually distorting. The eternal world. Life was at stake. Everyone, Jian Guishu said resolutely, please prepare for the worst. No one in the Sect of all times was afraid, and their eyes were filled with a look of facing death. Creak. Rows of Flowers pushed the door open and walked out, her eyes filled with disappointment. Death. She wasn't afraid. She just regretted that she couldn't have a make-up wedding with her husband, couldn't wear a phoenix coronet in front of him, and couldn't let him see her at her most beautiful. The tragic background music resounded in the Sect of all times, and the atmosphere became extremely depressing. The camera turned to Jun Changshao. At this moment, he was desperately flying towards the eternal world, and the ominous feeling in his heart was getting stronger, as if he was going to lose the most important thing at any time. Suddenly, Jun Changshao seemed to crash into a certain space. What is this place? Just as he was stunned, the environment became unusually clear, and then people gathered together. There was Lu Qianqian. There was Li Qingyang. There were also Xiao Ziji, Su Xiaoma, Gu Zhaoxi, Ryu Sinan, and other high-level members. Why are you here? Jun Changshao wanted to get closer, but found that the disciples were not real, so he frowned and said, "Illusion? The upper universe can't escape the catastrophe, and your patriarch will also die in this catastrophe. When the time comes, will you choose to sacrifice yourself for righteousness, or will you choose to be independent?" A heavy voice came. Jun Changshao immediately judged that the speaker was the Seven Xian Holy Master. Especially, wasn't sacrificing oneself for a righteous cause and staying out of harm's way just the choice he had made in the abyss of despair? Did they also encounter it? Or was what he was seeing now from the perspective of the high-level members and disciples when he was in the despair abyss? He guessed right. This was the scene when Li Qingyang and the others entered the independent space. At that time, he didn't explain it immediately because he wanted to leave a foreshadowing. Today, the answer could finally be revealed. If I sacrifice myself for righteousness, what benefits can I bring to the patriarch? Yi Xingchen asked. The Taishian Holy Master said, "Save the upper universe and gain immeasurable merit, then enter the land of eternal life." What about independent? If the upper universe is destroyed, you can survive. Make your choice. If it was me in the past, I would definitely choose to be independent because I would rather die than die. But now, Yi Xingchen raised his head and said, "I choose to sacrifice myself for righteousness." Swish. After saying that, he was teleported out. At the same time, the number 1 appeared in the sky above the illusion. "I choose to sacrifice myself for righteousness." At this time, Li Qingyang, who was standing in another area, also made his choice and was teleported out. The number became 2. It wasn't hard to see that this should be similar to a counting card. Sacrifice myself for righteousness. Sacrifice myself for righteousness. Xiao Ziji, Su Xiaoma, and the others all made their choices, and they all made the same choice. Therefore, the number kept changing. You all, Jun Changshao stood in place and watched the high-level members and disciples make their choices without hesitation. He couldn't control his emotions and wanted to cry on the spot because when everyone made their choice, the number after sacrifice reached 150,000. In the entire sect of all times, no one chose to be independent. It's hard to imagine. The Taishian saint exclaimed, "So many people will make the same choice. A soul that is favored by the immortal Tao really has a unique personality and charm." Immortal Tao. Jun Changshao was stunned. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him. From the appearance, it was similar to the 7 profound saint that he saw on the light screen, but the appearance was different. "You are? 7 profound saint. Impossible. It is as you saw earlier. My appearance is similar to yours because what you are doing right now is actually a continuation of what I did not complete in the past. Thus you are me and I am you." 7 profound saints said, "If the one who saved the world is Zhang San, then the appearance on the light screen is naturally him." Jun Changxiao's heart sank. He always thought that he was the 7 profound saint. Now it seemed that the system was right. This guy was the embodiment of all living beings. Jun Patriarch. 7 profound saints said, "Your disciple has made his choice. Now, please go and save the upper universe." "How can I save it?" Jun Changshao said bitterly. 7 profound saints' body gradually faded. He said, "You will soon obtain the absolute power to save the upper universe." Swish. Swish. Right after he disappeared, Jun Changshao appeared from the illusionary realm. Streaks of light streaked across the void and quickly merged into his body. He screamed in pain. It was heart-wrenching. Boom! The camera turned to Ling Li's point of view again. Under the pressure of the billowing demonic aura, the eternal world, which had gathered many top planes, completely collapsed and turned into nothingness. At that moment, the Iron Bone Mountain and the sect of all times in the inner world completely collapsed, and countless creatures were annihilated. This was the real destruction of a sect and a world. This was the worst loss that Jun Changshao had ever suffered since he transmigrated. The home that he had painstakingly built was gone. Strange. After absorbing the energy of the eternal world, Ling Li was quite surprised. Where are the people of the sect of all times? In the process of devouring the Iron Bone Mountain, he found that the entire sect was empty. He did not see a single person. Could it be that they had a premonition of danger and slipped away in advance? Humph. Ling Li shook his head and said, "How can you escape from me?" As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly frowned. Then, he quickly turned around and slammed out his palms. Boom! There was a sudden explosion, and the galaxy suddenly collapsed. Thump! Thump! Ling Li staggered back until he steadied himself. His eyes gradually filled with disbelief. He had just devoured so many planes, especially the eternal world. He was so powerful that he was invincible, but he was actually blasted so far away by a sudden force. Destroy my sect and my people. At this time, in the area where the flames were wildly erupting, Jun Changshao walked out with red eyes and said, "Unforgivable." At this moment, he was not alone. The higher-ups and disciples of the sect of all times who had disappeared were standing behind the patriarch like souls, forming an aura that was enough to shock the entire upper universe. When the eternal world was about to be devoured, Gu Zhaoxi, Li Qingyang, and the others used the sacrifice spell that 7 profound holy master had taught them. Finally, they turned into streams of energy that penetrated the void and merged into the patriarch's body. At this moment, Jun Changshao had the support of 150,000 disciples. This was probably the absolute power that 7 profound holy master had said would save the upper universe. Chapter 2000. In the abyss of despair, Jun Changshao had chosen to sacrifice himself. Little did he know that the higher-ups and disciples of the sect had also encountered a multiple-choice problem and had chosen to sacrifice themselves. This kind of highly unified thinking was hard to believe. From this, it could be seen that the sect of all times had always been of one mind. If it were in the past, Jun Changshao would definitely be moved. However, after accepting the power of the sect disciples, he felt even more grief and indignation. Grief because they had sacrificed themselves for him, and anger because the 7 profound sage had made them choose death. Especially during the process of fusing the energy, the faces of every higher-up and disciple would appear in his sea of consciousness. They would smile and wave as they left. Jun Changshao's strength was constantly increasing, and the pain he had to endure was also increasing. After all, in his heart, the weight of family was very heavy. Lu Qianqian, Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, Yi Xingqian. One by one, the disciples appeared in his sea of consciousness and then disappeared with a wave of their hands. It was as if the pain had pierced his heart, destroying Jun Changshao's body and soul. He could only hold his head and roar. The last straw that broke the camel's back was Rose of Flowers. She finally appeared in his sea of consciousness with her hands behind her back and a sweet smile on her face. She looked like an innocent girl. However, a trace of disappointment could be seen in her eyes. Perhaps it was because she did not have a wedding ceremony and did not wear a phoenix coronet. Jun Changshao was in even more pain. He was even more heartbroken. After fusing with the power of 150,000 disciples, his strength had increased to a very terrifying level. It was even more exaggerated than Ling Li absorbing the plane. It had to be said, there was no solution to this cheat. However, even if he was invincible now, Jun Changshao would not care. This was because he had always valued family. This reminded him of the saying, "Invincibility is so lonely." He was invincible. However, the person he cared about the most was gone. I want this invincibility. What's the use? Jun Changshao was still holding his head and roaring at the top of his lungs. His eyes gradually turned red, and his thoughts became extremely irritable. Die! I must die! Swish! Jun Changshao disappeared into thin air. The shock wave that erupted from his body instantly caused the star field to cave in. This power was indeed invincible. Back to the normal timeline. After Ling Li blocked Jun Changshao's punch, the two of them were separated by dozens of feet, and the aura they released directly suppressed the universe space. Jun Changshao, Ling Li said coldly, does it feel good to lose your family and your plane? Are you surprised that I have the devouring power of the celestial demonic emperor? My cultivation is even higher than his. Humph! The celestial devil emperor never saw me as a human being. How could he have expected that I would stab him in the back? Just a moment ago, he was still very nimble, but now he suddenly became more talkative. This was because Ling Li felt that he was invincible. Jun Changshao, who was standing opposite him, could not pose any threat to him. At the same time, he also wanted to find someone to talk to. After all, it was quite uncomfortable to hold it in. However, Jun Changshao remained silent. He looked at Ling Li as if he was looking at a dead man. TSK, TSK, TSK. At this moment, an extremely sinister smile came from Ling Li's body, causing the muscles on his face to immediately stiffen. My son, do you really think father is dead? Celestial Devil Emperor, Ling Li said in fear, you're not dead? Ah! Suddenly, he hugged his head and screamed miserably. The energy in his pubes surged out uncontrollably and gradually condensed into a tall and mighty body. That's right. It was the Celestial Devil Emperor. This guy was actually alive. Pfft. Energy flew out of his body uncontrollably. Not only was Ling Li's body hollowed out, he also couldn't help but spit out blood. My son. The Celestial Devil Emperor turned around, revealing a cunning smile, and said, it's all thanks to you that your father was able to escape Jun Changshao's pursuit. Ling Li's face turned sinister. He had already guessed that this guy must have faked his death. Wrong. The Celestial Devil Emperor was really dead. At that time, when Jun Changshao chased after him, he obviously had a premonition. He was already injured and couldn't hide. Coincidentally, his adopted son came to assassinate him, so he simply beat him at his own game. Speaking of Ling Li, he killed the Celestial Devil Emperor, refined his body, and inherited the devouring sky and transforming demon technique. But he didn't know that the Celestial Devil Emperor's soul had long been stored in the mental cultivation method. This thing was like a virus Trojan horse, quietly lurking in the body and constantly absorbing energy for self-recovery. Ling Li constantly swallowed the planes, and his strength increased rapidly, which provided supplies for the remaining soul. In short, the stronger the former, the faster the Celestial Devil Emperor came back from the dead. To put it bluntly, he was just a puppet. Now that Ling Li took the eternal world and the Celestial Devil Emperor's soul was completely recovered, he didn't hesitate to activate the virus Trojan horse and take all the power his son had gained in the past few months for himself. The older, the wiser. He had to admit defeat. Poor Ling Li had been raised as a tool since he was a child, and he still hadn't gotten rid of his fate. The Celestial Devil Emperor leaned over and grinned. Creating a new era is your father's lifelong wish. How can I let you, an unfilial son, do it for me? Ling Li clenched his fists tightly, and his eyes were full of unwillingness. He was so close to success, but the old bastard came back to life and took away all his power. Go to hell and find your beloved woman. The Celestial Devil Emperor clasped Ling Li's neck, and the billowing devil chi burst out and entangled him. Then, with a painful scream, he turned into nothingness. Ling Li, the last adopted son, completely dead. Alas! The Celestial Devil Emperor shook his head and said, it's a pity that my son died when he just experienced the feeling of invincibility. You too. Jun Changshao finally spoke. From the appearance of the Celestial Devil Emperor, to the conversation between the father and son, to Ling Li's death, he seemed to have turned into a little transparent. To be honest, Jun Changshao didn't care about the story between the two at all, and didn't care who occupied or possessed who, because they were all dead. Phew! The celestial devil emperor looked up and took a deep breath. The energy in his body burst out, filling his blood and meridians. The feeling of invincibility. An expression of intoxication and enjoyment gradually appeared on his face. Whoosh! At this moment, Jun Changshao appeared in front of him and punched his right fist leisurely. The speed of this punch was too slow. Not to mention the celestial devil emperor, even a truth-seeking realm cultivator could catch it. However, although the punch was very slow, the explosive power was very terrifying, and it even formed a space pressure that was invisible to the naked eye. The celestial devil emperor didn't care at first, and even smiled disdainfully, but when he felt the pressure, his smile suddenly froze. His body couldn't move. Oh no! The celestial devil emperor struggled hard, but the more he struggled, the tighter it became. Go to hell. At this time, Jun Changshao said. There was no emotion in these 3 words, as if they came from the abyss of hell. At the same time, the power gathered in the fist kept increasing, and the terrifying pressure directly tightened the celestial devil emperor and made a posture of stand still and wait to be beaten. Impossible! I'm invincible. Why am I restrained? The celestial devil emperor couldn't understand, and an angry expression appeared on his face. However, when his eyes suddenly rippled, he found that there were countless disciples of the sect of all times standing behind Jun Changshao. They looked real and illusory, and they were all making the same punching gesture. He got it. Jun Changshao's punch carried the power of the entire sect. Although the higher-ups and disciples had died, they were supporting the patriarch in another form, helping him eliminate the big devil who was wreaking havoc in the upper universe. This was sacrificing oneself for righteousness. It belonged to the strongest sect of all times. Whoosh! Whoosh! The punch that represented the end was slowly waved over, and a powerful force burst out, gradually shattering this galaxy and spreading to other areas. It was impossible to describe the shocking scene at this moment with words that could destroy the heavens and extinguish the earth. No, the celestial devil emperor roared in despair. He had just seized the power of his adopted son and experienced the feeling of invincibility. How could he be willing to rumble? Time didn't allow the celestial devil emperor to think too much, because Jun Changshao's fist, which represented the power of the entire sect, directly smashed his face, smashing his flesh, bones, sea of consciousness, soul, internal organs, and entire body. At the same time, several empty galaxies, unable to withstand the huge bombardment, all collapsed at the same time. This was the real invincibility. At this point, the big villain of the upper universe was instantly killed by Jun Changshao's punch. There was no gorgeous fighting process, because the disparity in strength between the two sides was too great. The poor celestial devil emperor thought that he was invincible, but he was still vulnerable in front of a cheat. Whoosh! Whoosh! The space shattered and cold wind whistled. Suddenly, a piece of land appeared in the originally empty and messy area, carrying a towering tree and a closed stone door. The tree of universe's origin wasn't eaten. Thud! Jun Changshao, who killed the celestial devil emperor, landed on the ground and then knelt weakly, lowering his head and covering his face. Tears flowed through the gaps between his fingers and splashed into the slightly dry mud. That's right. Once again, he saved the world. But he sacrificed the sect, sacrificed everything. This price was unbearable and unacceptable for Jun Changshao. If he could turn back time, he would rather choose to sacrifice himself to protect the sect, his wife, and his close relative. A hand rested on Jun Changshao's shoulder, and a comforting voice came. My condolences. This was a person with the word system engraved on his face and the word unification engraved on his cloak. That's right. The system that loved to complain. For the time being, It could be considered as Jun Changxiao's only family. Everyone in the sect had sacrificed themselves, leaving only Go Xing and the system. Sure enough, they were the true love that walked hand in hand to the end. It's gone. Jun Changxiao said. It's all gone, sigh. The system sighed. After accompanying the host for so many years, it had encountered troubles and setbacks, but this time was the most miserable. His home was gone, his disciples were gone, and his relatives were gone. If this was in the early and middle stages, it would be a lethal poison. Ding. Congratulations to the host for eliminating the celestial demonic emperor, which is a disaster in the upper universe. Completion rate, 100%. Ding. Main mission completed. Just as Jun Changxiao was at his most depressed, an emotionless notification sounded in his ears. In the past, this was the most beautiful sound to Go Xing. Now, even if he was rewarded with a mountain of gold and silver, even if he was given eternal life, he would not feel any joy. Because although he was standing at the top of the mountain, he would not have any relatives to accompany him. Ding. Congratulations to the host for completing the main mission. You have received immeasurable merit and can make a wish once. Wish. Jun Changxiao was surprised. In less than a second, he blurted out, My wish is to revive everyone in the sect of all times. Sorry. The mechanical notification sounded, unable to be fulfilled. Damn it. Jun Changxiao roared. What kind of wish is it if it can't be fulfilled? Calm down, host. The system advised. You can make a wish from another perspective, such as reviving all the planes and creatures that were swallowed by Ling Li and the celestial demonic emperor. That makes sense. Jun Changxiao hurriedly said again. Ding. Wish successful. The moment the notification rang out, the shattered universe suddenly trembled, and then gradually recovered. Countless planes also began to reappear. Buzz. At the same time, the area where Jun Changxiao was also changing. The soil under his feet rapidly expanded and gradually formed a super-large plain. Obviously, it was the eternal world that was destroyed by Ling Li. All the races and cities were restored to their original state. The dead creatures also appeared out of thin air. They were busy as usual, completely unaware that they had died and been revived. It felt like a movie played backward. Jun Changxiao was ecstatic, but when the eternal world was completely restored, he stood still like a wooden chicken. At this moment, he was no longer in front of the tree of universe origin, but standing on a slightly deserted mountain top. In front of him were dilapidated buildings and a plaque that had fallen to the ground, engraved with the words, Iron Bone Jing Sect. Could it be, the system exclaimed, the eternal world has been restored, but also time has been reversed. Puff. Jun Changxiao couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. He thought that he could revive his disciples and relatives from another perspective. However, the planes and creatures that were swallowed by the celestial demonic emperor or Ling Li were restored, but they were not. Even the sect had regressed to the dilapidated state. What the hell is going on? Jun Changxiao couldn't control his emotions. Even if he was extremely weak at this moment, even if he had no realm, he still had the strength to support himself. He clasped the system's neck and roared loudly. It used to be self-abuse. Now that the system had appeared, he could finally enjoy it. This may be because the disciples of the sect didn't die from Ling Li, but actively offered their lives to the host. The system said with difficulty. I'm going to kill you. Jun Changxiao was furious. He had wasted a chance to make a wish. Come on. The system said. I'm willing to be killed by the host to vent my anger. Bah. Spit. Jun Changxiao was too weak, so he could only spit weakly to vent his anger. An hour later, he lay on the ground like a puddle of mud. Child. At this time, Aunt Wang appeared in his field of vision, holding a bowl of noodles in her hand and said, Are you hungry? Woo woo woo. Jun Changxiao cried like a child. A few days later, Jun Changshao had strength, but his realm hadn't recovered, so he cleaned up the Iron Bone clan inside and out. Although his disciples and relatives were not revived, the sect was still there, so he planned to protect it for the rest of his life. However, every time he thought of them and the past, he would always feel depressed. Especially at dusk, he could always see Jun Changshao sitting alone in front of the mountain gate of the Iron Bone clan, and his lonely shadow was infinitely elongated. Sigh. The system sighed. Heroes are destined to be lonely. 1 year. 2 years. Time slowly passed. Jun Changshao was like an old man who didn't care about life and death, living alone in the Iron Bone clan. Because he didn't care about his appearance, his face was full of vicissitudes, and his beard was unshaven. One day, he sat in front of the mountain gate as usual. Hearing footsteps, he didn't even raise his head. "Aunt Wang, I'm not hungry." "Patriarch. It's me." Hearing this voice, Jun Changshao felt like he was struck by lightning. He raised his head with difficulty and saw Lu Qianqian in white standing in front of him. Although her aura was still cold, there was a warm smile on her face. Just as he opened his mouth, Li Qingyang walked up the stairs. Xiao Ziji, Su Xiaoma, Li Fei, Yi Xingqian, He Wudi, and the other disciples followed. They stood in front of the mountain gate and smiled at the patriarch. Was it a dream? Jun Changshao subconsciously pinched his face. Pain. It wasn't a dream. Brother. The higher-ups of the sect, led by Gu Zhaoxi, also came. They scratched their heads and said, "Why is the sect so dilapidated?" "It's not a big problem." Li Qingyang took out the blueprint and said, "Page and I can rebuild it." "Then what are we waiting for?" Su Xiaoma shouted, "Hurry up and get busy." As a result, the higher-ups and disciples began to rebuild the sect. All kinds of building materials were sent to the mountain. Jun Changshao sat on a rock outside the mountain gate. Seeing them busy, he suddenly felt like he was in a dream. He thought to himself, if this is a dream, then let's keep dreaming. Hey! Suddenly, a clear voice sounded. Jun Changshao subconsciously turned his head and saw rows of flowers standing in front of him. She smiled and said, "When the sect recovers to its former glory, we must hold a wedding." "No problem," Goxing said straightforwardly. "Patriarch." At this moment, Su Xiaoma stood in front of the newly built gate and said, "Do you want to change the plaque?" "Change." Jun Changshao jumped down and personally took down the plaque of the Iron Bone clan and replaced it with the plaque of the strongest sect in history. Come. Take a group photo. As a souvenir. On the newly built martial arts practice field, Jun Changshao held the 40-meter-long blade. There was a camera at the end of the blade. He and the higher-ups and disciples around him made a peace sign and smiled brightly. 1, 2, 3. Eggplant. The camera slowly moved back and finally stopped at the plaque of the strongest sect in history. It was the end. It was also the beginning. Chapter 2001. All the disciples of the sect of all times had come back from the dead. This was not a dream. It was the most real thing. Strange. Why did they suddenly come back from the dead? It had been a few years since Jun Changshao made his wish, so it definitely had nothing to do with the former. When something could not be explained scientifically, it could only be attributed to the system. It was strange. After everyone in the sect appeared, the system did not speak again. Jun Changshao tried to call out but did not get a reply. He felt that something was wrong and said, "Could it be it sacrificed itself to revive the sect of all times?" "No." Go Leftover roared towards the sky. Sad snowflakes floated in the air, and the northern wind whistled. "Stop howling." At this time, the system finally spoke. Jun Changshao was overjoyed. It was still alive and did not sacrifice itself. "Since it's alive, why don't you speak?" "I'm trying to deduce why everyone in the sect came back from the dead." "Have you figured it out?" "More or less. Most likely." "Why did it come back from the dead?" If I'm not wrong, your disciple's death was not real. It was a test left by the 7 profound sage to see if you can work together. Once the heavenly demon empress is eliminated, she will naturally come back from the dead. That makes sense. Jun Changshao agreed. There's another possibility. The system said, the host eliminated the great demon who brought disaster to the world. Because of the assistance, your disciple also received a lot of merit and naturally came back from the dead. Compared to the test deliberately left by the 7 profound sage, this seemed more reliable. Everyone is happy. Jun Changshao smiled. All the planes and living beings that were destroyed by the heavenly demon empress or Lingli came back from the dead. There were no casualties in the sect of all times. It was the most ideal ending. If one had to say that it was a pity, the sect of all times had lost its former glory. It was not a big problem, as long as the disciples were still alive. Not to mention the fact that the sect had fallen into ruins. Even if they had no cultivation at this moment, they would stand at the peak again sooner or later. Was it that confident? Because there was still the system and various facilities and mystic realms. Countless years later, historians would define the heavenly demon empress's destruction by Jun Changshao as the first year of the eternal calendar. This eternal calendar referred to the eternal realm. This was because the world of the universe was still condensing, and after a few decades, it formed a complete operating system. As the creator, Jun Changshao not only integrated the upper universe, but also pulled the lower universe. From then on, there were no more martial disciples or martial masters in the mortal world. There were no more revolving core realm or truth-seeking realm cultivators in the upper realm. They now had brand new names and more detailed levels. The first was the eternal world. There was no doubt that it was the brain of the universe, the absolute holy land of martial art. Secondly, there were many planes that had migrated over. They were scattered all over the place, and all of them had teleportation portals that connected to each other. Because the new system had just been born, each dimension had yet to form its own unique style, so there was nothing special to talk about for the time being. Just a little. Jun Changshao used the middle school and grand martial arts schools, which he had implemented in the eternal world, to operate in the big planes. This was one of the important channels for the younger generation to rise up and enter the eternal world. Of course, Go Xing didn't interfere too much with the development of the realms. He only set up the martial arts school, so that all creatures could have a way to cultivate. As for the families, forces and even sects of the realms, they could develop and recruit talents at will. Because the realms were close to each other and there was a transmission formation, it was as easy as visiting each other in the eternal realm. This also greatly stimulated the exchange of martial art. It was only a matter of time before the collective sublimation. Perfect. Jun Changshao was like the creator hanging in the highest sky of the universe. He looked down at the new area centered on the eternal realm with a satisfied smile on his face. The system said, soon, this place will be unprecedentedly prosperous, and the host's achievements will be passed down through the ages. It's an undeserved reputation. Jun Changshao shook his head and said, I don't care. But the system couldn't help but spit. By the way, Jun Changshao said, how did you come here? Is it important? It's very important to the readers. If you don't tell them your origin, even the perfect ending can be classified as a bad ending. It doesn't matter who I am. What matters is that I have helped the host and brought joy to the readers. Okay. Jun Changshao looked at you outside the screen and shrugged helplessly. This guy plans to remain mysterious forever. Time flew. 10 years passed in the blink of an eye. The sect of all times was transformed by Li Qingyang and Page. It finally regained its former glory. The disciples cultivated as usual, as if the death and destruction they had experienced before had never happened. It was true. This sect had always exuded warmth and the smell of home. In these 10 years, Jun Changshao had completely recovered from the injuries suffered by the heaven-destroying demon emperor. His strength was still at the top of the divine mystery realm, and he could be regarded as the number one person in the eternal realm. Whether he could be the number one person or not was not decided by him, but by the historians and thousands of living beings. The entire domain would not forget Jun Changzhao's achievements. His name had long been recorded in the annals of history, and they unanimously recognized him as the founder of the new era. He was another legendary martial artist after the seven profound Saint Venerable. Even the Sect of all times was regarded as a legendary sect. Not bad. It's written very accurately. In the study, Jun Changshao flipped through the history of the Eternal Realm compiled by many historians and saw that they agreed with his record and evaluation. You're really shameless. The system was speechless. Actually, Jun Changshao put down the book and touched his chin. I can find someone to write an autobiography for me. Who? See you again. Year 520 of the Eternal Realm, May 20th. It was 520 years after the heaven-destroying demon emperor was killed. On this day, the entire Eternal Realm was in turmoil. There was no other reason. The legendary expert, the leader of the legendary sect, Jun Changshao, was going to hold a grand wedding. No. When many experts received the hot invitation, they said with a bitter face, "Did we really give the money for the wedding last time for nothing?" On the day of the wedding, the entire Eternal Realm was red and full of joy. All the famous people in the major planes, including the families, forces, and sects, came to participate. Not only that, before the wedding, the array hall had already prepared a projection screen in advance. All the planes in the Eternal Realm could see the real-time scene of the wedding. Historians described this as a legendary wedding that had never been seen before and would never be seen again. Please welcome the bride. On the training field of the Sect of all times, Jian Guishu, who was acting as the master of ceremonies, said loudly. In an instant, the noisy wedding scene quieted down, and the martial artists watching the screen all held their breath. It was just a wedding, and the entire region was watching. This card was simply invincible. Not long after, a graceful figure appeared on the screen. The beautiful Rose of Flowers, wearing a phoenix crown and a robe, walked over with the help of a few female disciples. The long wedding dress behind her was at least a few meters long. There was no need to think. This strange wedding dress must have been designed by Go Xing himself. So beautiful! Everyone's attention was on Hua Rose, on that beautiful face that could cause the downfall of nations. Other than feeling emotional in their hearts, they also sincerely wished that sect leader Jun and Madame Jun would grow old together and give birth to a son soon. Speaking of having a child soon, the fertility formula provided by Gu Tianxing seemed to have been forgotten in the corner of the spatial ring. Would it come in handy in the future? P.S. The Upper Realm Universe chapter end. There should be a few chapters of similar plots, such as Yi Xingqian, He Wudi, and the silly daily life of the sect. Let fate decide, let fate decide. Chapter 2002. 1,000 years later. The Eternal Realm was completely formed. The central area was guarded by the Eternal Realm, surrounded by various large planes, forming rings after rings. In order to distinguish, Jun Changshao divided them into levels, from 1 to 9. The lower the number, the lower the level, and the higher the number, the higher the level. For example, the outermost was a proper first-level plane. It couldn't be helped. They were all continents that moved from the lower realm. Because they didn't have the same starting line, they could only be ranked the lowest. Jun Changshao made full use of the tree of origin to connect all the planes of the Eternal Realm, and set a certain level of heaven and earth attributes in each ring. If there were low-level planes that could develop in the future, they would be qualified to enter the higher areas and enjoy better treatment. Of course, if the higher planes didn't want to improve, they would naturally be gradually marginalized. This policy seemed a little cruel, but Jun Changshao had to implement it. Because if the planes and warriors wanted to be strong, they needed enough motivation. He even made a rule that the planes could attack each other. Instead of raising them like flowers in a greenhouse, it was better to let them experience the wind and rain. And then, that's it. Yuan Gongzi's mouth twitched and said, Patriarch, if you let the major planes attack each other and wantonly plunder, the Eternal Realm system will collapse sooner or later. That's a matter for the future. I can't care about it, Jun Changshao said. In any case, he was the creator of the Eternal Realm. This was too irresponsible. No. Yuan Gongzi said, it has to be changed. How? I understand what the Patriarch means. He's afraid that they'll be too comfortable, so he allows them to kill each other. But if the drug is too strong, it'll be counterproductive. Why don't we set a fixed year to start the war, and a truce for the rest of the time? Okay. Jun Changshao patted him on the shoulder and said, I'll leave it to you. I'm going out. Leaving again? Yuan Gongzi was about to cry. It had been 1,000 years since the Patriarch got married. He threw all the domestic affairs to him, and the couple often went out to play. Sigh. Jun Changshao said, I also have my own difficulties. Isn't it just having a child? Yuan Gongzi said, it's not a big deal. Jun Changshao roared, it's been 1,000 years and there's still no news. How can I not be anxious? Yuan Gongzi hurriedly comforted her. Senior Gu has wanted a child for tens of thousands of years. The Patriarch and Madam are still young, so there's no need to pursue it. Just let nature take its course. Bullshit. Jun Changshao said, being suppressed by the heavenly Tao, it's impossible to let nature take its course. Senior Gu, where's the formula for giving birth to children? Is the Patriarch useless? Yuan Gongzi asked. Speaking of this formula, he still remembered that Go Xing had casually thrown it into his spatial ring with a look of disdain. AI. Jun Changshao sighed. The herbs listed in the formula are too rare. This king has turned the entire eternal domain upside down over the years, but there are still several herbs that I haven't found. Yuan Gongzi was silent. It was too miserable. No matter what, he couldn't find a wife in the future. Let's not talk about it. Jun Changshao waved his hand and said, I'll leave the sect to you for now. This king will continue to look for herbs. Leaving the main hall and returning to his courtyard, Rose of Flowers was trimming the roses. Because she had become a wife, her temperament was more graceful and luxurious than before. Let's go. Jun Changshao shouted. The entire star field has been searched, where else can we go? Rose of Flowers said. Jun Changshao thought for a moment and said, to another universe. It's not dangerous, right? Rose of Flowers was a little worried. Although she also wanted a child, this kind of thing was destined, so she could only let nature take its course. Your husband is the Eternal Domain Master. How can there be danger in another universe? Jun Changshao said proudly. Listen to father. Rose of Flowers said, there are many powerhouses in other universes. With your temper, I'm afraid you'll get into trouble again. Impossible. Jun Changshao said, this time, I'm only going to look for herbs. The system laughed. Who would believe that? Okay. Rose of Flowers put down the scissors and said, then let's go out and take a look. Let's go. Jun Changshao picked her up and disappeared in a stream of light. Now? Of course. Sigh. Su Xiaoma held his chin and said, the Patriarch leaves full of hope every time, and returns full of disappointment every time. Yes. Li Qingyang agreed. The two brothers had melancholy on their faces, and even their expressions were synchronized. Not long after Jun Changshao and Rose of Flowers got married, Li Qingyang and Su Xiaoma held their weddings one after another. Although the scale was not as big as the Patriarch's, it still shocked the Eternal Domain. All the major forces brought money to congratulate them. The main point was one after another. Not two couples got married at the same time. If they got married together, there was only one share of money, so naturally, they had to be separated. This was hard for all sides. In 1,000 years, just the amount of money had changed countless times. Today, it was not this disciple's wedding, tomorrow it was that disciple's wedding. Since Li Qingyang and Su Xiaoma got married, the problem that troubled them was the same as Jun Changxiao's. Due to the suppression of the heavenly Tao, it was too difficult to have a child. Go Xing could not have a child because Rose of Flowers had a long lifespan. Sister Qiao Er and Xia Shuiyun were both of normal age. Why was it so difficult? Because Li Qingyang and Su Xiaoma had both reached the divine secret realm. Even if their ages were suitable, they could not escape the suppression. To put it bluntly, the higher the realm, the harder it was to have a child. There was still no news from their wives. Li Qingyang and Su Xiaoma must be anxious, so they could only hope that the patriarch could find the ingredients and refine a few more. Good. There were many disciples in the sect of all times who suffered from this and that illness. Jun Changxiao left with Rose of Flowers this time, shouldering the heavy responsibility of the entire sect's future prosperity. Speaking of children, it had to be mentioned Yi Xingchen. The patriarch and his fellow sect members were worried about this matter, and he had it early. It had to be said that it was a great fortune. However, in these 1,000 years, Night Emperor did not have a happy time. Yes, he had a child, but it was still in his mother's womb. He wanted to, but couldn't. He wanted to, but couldn't. The sect of all times was a gathering place for weirdos. Ah! At this time, a howl came from the back mountain. The disciples looked back and saw He Wudi hugging his head and walking around the tree of universe's origin. Again. Does he feel uncomfortable if he doesn't shout twice a day? Su Xiaoma and Li Fei squatted in the distance and muttered. Junior brother, he has been studying how to open the door of eternal life all these years. Looking at the current situation, I'm afraid it will become a living series. Everyone shook their heads and busied themselves. Because they were used to it, No. He Wudi walked around the tree of universe's origin a few more times, then sat cross-legged on the ground, took out a remnant scroll, and studied it carefully. Definitely not. Ah! He raised his head and shouted, "It's too difficult." Chapter 2003. Whoosh whoosh. At the western end of the eternal domain, the space overlapped and the wind howled. This was the edge of the universe, similar to the distortion belt that existed between the major galaxies in the past. Hold on tight. Jun Changxiao said, "It might be a little troublesome." Rose of Flowers leaned into her husband's arms and hugged his waist tightly. Although it's a little inauspicious, I still have to say that showing off love will lead to a quick death. Whoosh! Jun Changxiao hugged Rose of Flowers and turned into a red stream of light, instantly flying into the overlapped space. Against the terrifying tearing feeling, he moved forward quickly. According to his father, as long as he passed through this space distortion belt, he could reach another universe. Speaking of his father, he had to mention the red-haired man. Although the main text had already ended, even if there was an extra meaning now, it still didn't deserve a name. It was a little tragic. Jun Changxiao's purpose of going to another universe this time was not to see the outside world, nor to find experts to exchange pointers, but to find medicinal herbs. As the saying goes, there are 3 unfilial things, and having no children is the worst. Since he had already established a family, he must think of a way to have children. What's more, he had thought many times that he had been developing the sect in this life and had been working hard to become stronger. He had to provide a superior life for his descendants, so he had to be strong from the start. Boom! Boom! In the space distortion belt, thunder and lightning erupted, trying to stop the couple's unruly behavior of crossing the universe, but the effect was better than nothing. 1,000 years ago, Jun Changxiao had already reached the peak of the divine mystery realm. 1,000 years later, the increase in strength would be even more obvious, especially in the use of the power of the immortal sound. It could be said that he had reached perfection. Of course, this was the highest point that could be absorbed and comprehended at present. In fact, as long as he didn't enter the land of eternal life, there was almost no room for improvement. Whoosh! About half a month later, Jun Changshao hugged rows of flowers and successfully passed through the separation belt between the two universes, successfully arriving at another universe system. The red-haired man had once said that other universes had different martial arts, and when he just stabilized his body and felt the attributes of this area, he really found that it was different from the eternal domain. Although there were many changes, it was still the same. After getting used to it a little, he would be able to understand it. Where are we going? Rose of Flowers was still in his arms, seemingly unwilling to come down. For the past half a month, the cameras had been focused on the two of them. The extent of their love for each other all day long had broken the hearts of many single people. Don't mind it. Just get used to it. I'm just strolling around. Jun Changshao didn't have a specific location. He determined a direction based on his feelings and flew away with her in his arms. He decided to first find a plane to understand this new universe and its pharmacology system. He wanted to see if he could find the herbs that matched the formula. Boom, boom. However, not long after they walked, they vaguely heard the sound of explosions. Jun Changshao was, after all, a veteran of the Jianghu. He immediately deduced, someone is fighting and their level is not low. Go. Let's go take a look. Rose of Flowers hurriedly advised, let's find a place to stay first. She was afraid that her husband would cause trouble since he had just arrived. Judging from the energy waves, the two combatants are probably at the half-step fecta level. We can go and mediate the fight. We can also get information about this universe from them, Jun Changshao said. Rose of Flowers rolled her sexy eyes. Are you trying to get information? You're just looking for trouble. Don't say it. Asking for information was just Jun Changshao's excuse. He mainly wanted to see how the experts of this universe fought. A wife knows a dog best. This saying was absolutely correct. Boom, boom. In an area where space had collapsed, several half-step Fecta realm rankers were fighting. From the eruption of the heaven and earth attribute and the use of martial skills, it was obvious that they were different from the eternal realm. Moreover, the battle reached its climax. Someone even let out a loud roar and summoned a huge monster. Old Sang, you're using your soul beast so soon. An old man sneered. Humph. The old man who seemed to have summoned an ancient soul beast said coldly, the 9 seals palm that was found in the ancient tomb is not in my hands. Don't be so aggressive. Thousands of people entered the ancient tomb, and you're the only one who came out alive. You still want to quibble? Another person said coldly. If you want to live, hand over the 9 seals palm. The only old woman among the 4 said hoarsely. From this, it could be seen that these 3 people were in cahoot. For some kind of martial arts secret manual, they were collectively targeting the old man who summoned the soul beast. Sure enough, no matter where, as long as there were treasures, they would be targeted. Jun Changshao, who was rushing over, heard their conversation and his expression became interesting. This 9 seals palm was a little familiar. F***CK. Wasn't it the martial skill that he exchanged for with a lot of trash martial arts in the cultivation method pavilion? Considering the origins of many things, Jun Changshao thought to himself, could it be that it was stolen from this universe? Impossible. The system said, maybe it's just the same name. That's true. The universe was so big, and there were as many martial arts as the eternal sands. Maybe there was the same one. How many times have I said it? The old man said angrily. This old man found the 9 seals palm in the ancient tomb, but before I could touch it, it disappeared into thin air. Hearing this, Jun Changshao roared, it must be the system that stole it. The system was silent. Do you think we will believe you? The 3 of them looked at each other, and seemed to have reached a consensus. They increased the intensity and rhythm of their attacks, obviously wanting to take the other party down first before carefully interrogating the secret manual. Die. The old man was not to be trifled with. He controlled the huge soul beast to fight. This person is strong, but it is difficult for two fists to fight against so many fists. It is only a matter of time before he is defeated. Jun Changshao stopped and watched from afar, looking like a martial arts grandmaster. In the past, he relied on the system. Now, his strength had reached a terrifying level. Naturally, he did not need to rely on any tools to spy on the strengths and weaknesses of others and give a comprehensive analysis. What did this mean? It meant that after a long period of cheating, he had become a master. Lightning demonic seal. Reckless spirit saber. Celestial dipper sacred blast. The three experts executed martial arts moves that seemed to be born at the same time, launching a series of attacks at the huge soul beast. The latter was outnumbered and was first forced to retreat before finally collapsing into nothingness. Pooh! Sang Qingtian spat out a mouthful of blood, his face extremely pale. Good chance. Seeing this, the three experts charged over from three directions. All kinds of energy gathered to form an inescapable net. Sang Qingtian knew that he could not escape. He steeled his heart and was about to ignite his soul. However, someone suddenly pressed on his shoulder, cutting off the thought that was spreading through his arteries to his sea of consciousness. When the three experts saw a young man appear behind their target, a surprised expression appeared on their faces. However, the situation was already like an arrow on the bow, so they could only continue attacking. Everyone! Jun Changshao pressed on Sang Qingtian's shoulder, stopping him from self-destructing. Then, he looked forward and said with a smile, "Give me some face." These 4 words seemed to contain some kind of magic. Not only did they control the powerful pressure, but they also controlled the 3 experts. The entire space suddenly became as quiet as a painting. P.S. Tell me about my current situation. I am preparing a new book. If there are no accidents, it should be released soon. The legend chapter of the strongest sect has basically come to an end. What I am writing now can be understood as an extra chapter. It will not be long, and I can't guarantee that I will update it every day. After all, I will spend more time and energy on the new book. At the same time, I will take the opportunity to rest. From the transcendent god monster to the strongest sect of all ages, I have been updating continuously for more than 4 years. Chapter 2004. Jun Changshao would definitely be involved in a lively place. Hence, he made a move. The main reason was that he felt a little embarrassed. After all, the Universe 9 Seals Palms was stolen by the system and Sang Qingtian was the scapegoat. Sigh. In the distance, rows of flowers held her forehead and said, "We're in trouble again." With her husband's strength, it wasn't a problem to deal with 3 experts. However, if he acted rashly, it would be easy to offend the faction behind them. "Who are you?" Although the old woman's body was being controlled, her tone was unusually cold. Her words also had another meaning. Why should she give you face? It was normal. Go Xing didn't have any face. He was from another place. Why should they give him face? Passer-by. Jun Changshao said, "I can't stand you guys bullying me with numbers." 3 against 1 was indeed a little too much. As a member of the pugilistic world, even if the system didn't steal the secret manual, he would still help. Furthermore, the matter was already very obvious. They were here for the secret manual, but Sang Qingtian didn't get it. Yet, they still attacked him unreasonably. It was a little too much. "Kid," the controlled old man said in a low voice, "you're on a narrow path." "Friend," Sang Qingtian said, "this is a grudge between me and them. Since you're passing by, please leave. Don't get involved in karma because of me and get yourself killed." This person was still alright. "Sorry," Jun Changshao said, "you and I already have karma. Sang Qingtian was puzzled. Although the young man in front of him had an imposing appearance, he was sure that he had never seen him before. How could there be karma? You went to the ancient tomb to look for the secret manual, and I took it away. That's the cause. Now that we've met in the vast universe, that's the effect, Jun Changshao said. What? Sang Qingtian was shocked. You took the secret manual? This voice also contained a trace of anger. After all, because of the 9 seals heaven and earth palms, he had been bitterly hunted down by them for dozens of years, and his days had been filled with uncertainty. Phew! At this moment, Jun Changshao withdrew his pressure, allowing the 3 people to regain their freedom. Then, he leaped into the air and his right hand cut through the void as he shouted, Spirit Seal Technique. Brahma Seal Style. Extreme Seal. Boom, boom, boom. He struck out 9 consecutive palms, each of them explosively shattering the void. Seeing this, Sang Qingtian was shocked. Not only did this guy take away the secret manual, he even cultivated it to such a level. The other 3 were also dumbfounded. They could tell that Jun Changshao was trying to prove to them that he had cultivated the 9 seals of the cosmos palms. However, he was able to unleash an earth-shattering power in such a casual manner. His strength must be unfathomable. There was such a person in Lin Tianyu? They frantically mobilized the memories and information in their sea of consciousness, hoping to find an identity that matched the young man, but in the end they found nothing. 3. Jun Changshao withdrew his spiritual energy and clasped his hands behind his back like a martial arts master. He said, This old man left the secret manual in the ancient tomb in the hope that a fated person would be able to inherit it. In the end, no one obtained it, so I had to take it back. Don't make things difficult for this child. This old man? Baby? The 3 of them looked at each other and immediately confirmed that although this person looked young, his actual age might be older than them. And there was another thing. He was the one who left the 9 seals of the cosmos palms in the ancient tomb? Could it be? Sang Qingtian said with trembling hands, Senior is perfected Qiankuan? Sigh. Jun Changshao sighed and said, What a nostalgic name. His expression and words were equivalent to an indirect admission. The expressions of the 2 men and 1 woman changed drastically, and the confusion in their hearts was suddenly solved. So, this young man was once a peak powerhouse. Perfected Qiankuan was a peak powerhouse in Lin Tianyu, which was the 32nd universe. He was active 100,000 years ago and could be considered a legend that shook the universe. It was said that he peeked into the secrets of heaven and stepped into the land of eternal life. Not to mention who was stronger in terms of seniority and prestige, he was basically equivalent to the 7 profound sage in the past. Jun Changshao was also amazing. He had just arrived and already pretended to be such a person. The most shocking thing was that the 4 powerhouses present, who could be considered as reputable, actually believed him. Damn it. This was too retarded. In fact, they believed him for a reason. Firstly, Jun Changshao was very strong, similar to perfected Qiankuan in the past. Secondly, the 9 seals of the cosmos palms was one of the martial arts created by perfected Qiankuan. No one had inherited it before, but he could use it to perfection. Sigh. This martial art was casually comprehended by this old man when I was seeking the Tao. I left it in the ancient tomb to wait for the fated person, but I didn't know that it had harmed so many lives. It is a sin, a sin. The system really couldn't take it anymore. Today, this old man took back the secret manual. If you want to find it, you don't have to find anyone else. You can find this old man. Jun Changshao said. It was very obvious. This guy deliberately pretended to be a big shot to get Sang Qingtian out of trouble. The 3 of them were at a loss. Still not leaving? Waiting to drink tea? Jun Changshao's eyes suddenly became sharp. Goodbye. The three of them broke out in cold sweat and hurriedly left. Just a glance made them feel as if they were in the abyss. Even if they questioned perfected Qianquan's identity, they didn't dare to make a move. However, this was shocking news. They had to quickly inform their own forces. After watching them leave, Sang Qingtian hurriedly turned around and bowed. "Thank you for saving me, Senior." "No need to thank me," Jun Changshao said. "You and I are fated." Sang Qingtian was overjoyed. To be fated with such a top expert was definitely a blessing. However, after hesitating for a moment, Sang Qingtian said with difficulty, "I heard that Senior entered the land of eternal life. Why are you still in the Lin Tian region?" Jun Changshao obtained two good pieces of information from his words. 1. This was the Lin Tian region. 2. This universe also knew about the land of eternal life. Sigh. Jun Changshao shook his head and said, "The land of eternal life is a secret that we have been exploring for eternity. How can it be so easy to enter?" Sang Qingtian was enlightened. Senior Qianquan didn't enter the land of eternal life. The rumors were just groundless rumors. "Child," Jun Changshao said, "I've been in seclusion for 100,000 years. Things have changed and people have changed. I wonder if the blessed grotto heaven I used for cultivation back then still exists?" Reporting to Senior, Sang Qingtian said hurriedly, "Your Qianquan cave abode is still around. It is now a sacred ground that junior martial artists worship." Jun Changshao said, "Then don't go back. Speaking of which, how did he even know about the Qianquan cave abode? Wasn't it because it was written in the secret manual?" Pretending to be a mighty figure wasn't done on a whim, but because he had absolute confidence. Unless his true body appeared, unless there were relatives or friends that he had met before, it was almost impossible for him to be exposed given his strength and comprehension of palm technique. This incident taught them that when top experts left behind treasures, they must never write their experiences down. Otherwise, it would be easy for Go Shing to seize the opportunity. "After leaving for tens of thousands of years, I no longer have a home when I return." Jun Changshao looked up at the sky and sighed, his eyes filled with vicissitudes. In terms of acting, Go Shing could be said to be a master at it. Sang Qingtian savored it carefully and instantly gained something in his heart and soul. He was secretly shocked. As expected of a legendary mighty figure, even his words contained profound mysteries. "Senior," he said, "if you don't mind, please follow me to the Extreme Heroes world and stay there for a few days." This, Jun Changshao pretended to consider and said, "All right." Sang Qingtian was so excited that he almost beat his chest and roared. If this legendary figure could come to the plane he lived in, it would definitely be a blessing of 3 lifetimes. Jun Changshao brought the rows of flowers to the Extreme Heroes world as Zhenren Qianquan. "Senior." On the way, Sang Qingtian asked, "This is the woman that I love the most." "So it's Senior Qinghong. Sorry for the disrespect." It was rumored that Zhenren Qianquan and Qinghong were childhood sweethearts. After they got married, they were like shadows and were very loving. They were the model of a married couple. This impersonation was flawless. Of course, Jun Changshao was not doing this to show off his acting skills. The purpose of impersonating Zhenren Qianquan was very simple. It was to find out about the situation in this universe and find the herbs in the formula. It was too troublesome to search the planes one by one. He might as well use the name of a legendary figure and mobilize the power of the entire universe to help him search. What a sneaky plan! Needless to say, just as Go Shing was on the way to the Extreme Heroes world, the 3 people who escaped had already sent the news to their respective forces. The news of Zhenren Qianquan's appearance spread across the entire Lin Tian region, causing a huge commotion. Report: Sang Qingtian has returned to the Extreme Heroes world. Report: there's a young couple accompanying him. Report: the young man is exactly as described by the 3 elders. He should be Senior Zhenren Qianquan. Once this news was out, from a god's perspective, one could see many powerful figures, Dharma treasures, and battleships flying out from various planes and surging towards the extreme hero's world. Jun Changxiao's trip to the other universes this time was destined to not be an ordinary one, as he had already alarmed the various powers upon his arrival. Chapter 2005. Extreme Heroes World. It was a relatively high-level plane. At this moment, Jun Changxiao followed Sang Qingtian to stay here temporarily, smoothly understanding their local customs, martial arts, and medicinal herbs. First was the realm. This universe was divided into three types, namely the human realm, the earth realm, and the highest heaven realm. Each realm was divided into early, middle, and peak. It was said that after reaching the peak of the heaven realm, one could enter the land of eternal life. In that case, Jun Changxiao said, my current strength is equivalent to the peak of the heaven realm? Of course. Lin Tianyu still had many realms. But in front of Go Xing, it was difficult to be elegant, so there was no need to elaborate. In short, the three levels of human, earth, and heaven corresponded to the eternal domain's core realm, truth-seeking realm, and divine secret realm. The other universes should be similar. The names were random, and the effects were similar. To this, Jun Changxiao was speechless. What was the use of having a good name? It was better to simply divide them into levels 1 to 999. So, the system roared, this is the reason why he divided the levels of the eternal domain into numbers. As mentioned earlier, Jun Changxiao integrated the upper universe and redivided the realms. That's right, it was the simplest level 1 to 999. There were no fancy names, no complicated divisions such as high, middle, and low. It was just a numerical level. According to Go Xing's realm setting, he was already level 999 in the eternal domain, a max level account. If he did not open a new map or dungeon, he would be invincible. As for the upper echelons and core disciples of the sect of all times, most of them were around level 800, still some time away from the max level. A good domain. It was turned into an online game. No wonder the system couldn't help but roar. However, what was even worse was the division of medicinal herbs and treasures, which were also divided into levels 1 to 999. It was not hard to imagine. Many years later, when the warriors of the eternal domain met, they would ask, brother, what's your level? What's the level of your equipment? I'm not talented. Level 666, weapon 666, treasure 666. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Another example was a certain organization announcing to the public that they had developed a brand new pill that could greatly increase spirit energy absorption, and its level was 888. Just thinking about it made him speechless. When Jun Changxiao was serious, he was super serious. When he was despicable, he was super despicable. Senior. Sang Qingtian stood in front of the study and carefully looked at the herbs recorded in the prescription. He said awkwardly, I don't know much about herbs, so I really don't know what is recorded in the prescription. Jun Changxiao felt depressed. He was a heavenly Dharma realm expert after all, but he did not know anything about herbs. Does anyone in your realm know? Jun Changxiao did not give up. Sang Qingtian replied, Senior, please wait for a moment. This junior will go and find a master who is proficient in medicinal herbs. He had already regarded Jun Changxiao as Zhenren Qiankuan. Naturally, he did not dare to neglect him. He called all the medicinal masters of the extreme heroes world over as soon as possible. For a moment, 30 people were gathered in the elegant courtyard. From their age and attire, as well as the thick smell of medicinal herbs they exuded, it was easy to guess that they were masters of alchemy and medicine. What's the situation? I don't know. Senior sang, why did you call us here for no reason? Everyone was a little confused. Although Sang Qingtian was not the master of the extreme heroes world, he was still a top expert with the most authority. Now that he was invited over, they were really flattered. Senior. At this moment, Sang Qingtian cupped his fists toward the room and said, "The alchemy masters of my world are all here." Everyone widened their eyes. A top expert like Senior Sang would actually call someone else a senior and act so respectfully. If they did not see it with their own eyes, it would be hard to believe. Creak. The door suddenly opened and a voice sounded, "Come in." Yes. Sang Qingtian turned around and gave the alchemy masters a look. Everyone hurriedly walked in carefully. They were cursing in their hearts. Who exactly was in the room? F***CK. A young man? After more than 30 alchemy masters entered, they saw Jun Changshao sitting on a chair with his eyes closed. Their expressions were immediately interesting. From his skin and color, he was definitely not over 100 years old. Was such a young man worthy of being called a senior by Sang Qingtian? Although everyone was doubtful, they still acted respectfully. "Child," Jun Changshao said, "let them take a look at the prescription." Senior Sang was at least 10,000 years old, and he actually called him a child. "Yes." Sang Qingtian took out the prescription and said, "Come and see if you have any understanding of the herbs recorded here. If you can find or provide any clues, I will definitely reward you greatly." When the alchemy masters heard the words "will definitely reward you greatly," their eyes lit up. Then, they swarmed around the table. This, after reading it, they were all stunned. The alchemy masters present had thousands of years of experience, but they had never even heard of the herbs recorded here, let alone seen them. Jun Changshao naturally noticed from their expressions and could not help but feel a little disappointed. Sigh. Was it so difficult to have a child? Senior Sang. An alchemy master said bitterly, "We know nothing about the herbs recorded here." Trash. Sang Qingtian shouted angrily. Forget it, forget it." Jun Changshao waved his hand and said, "These herbs are too rare. Only a few people know about them. You can't blame them." "Senior, don't worry," Sang Qingtian said. "I will do my best to find these herbs for you." The Ultimate Heroes world was a relatively traditional martial world. In the 32nd universe, there were many worlds that focused on alchemy. Perhaps he could find some clues. "No rush," Jun Changshao said. "Take your time." This time, he was prepared to fight a protracted battle when he went out to find herbs, so he was very open-minded. In the following days, Jun Changshao brought rows of flowers to tour the Ultimate Heroes world, experiencing different customs and appreciating the wonders created by nature. This carefree life had been going on for thousands of years. Not only did the couple not feel bored, but they also enjoyed it. A patriarch and a patriarch's wife. They did not manage the sect and only cared about traveling. They really felt sorry for Deputy Patriarch Yuan Feng. One day, Jun Changshao, who was fishing leisurely by the lake, suddenly sensed that there were many powerful auras in the universe rushing towards the Ultimate Heroes world, so he smiled and said, "They're here so soon?" He pretended to be a legend of the Lin Tian region, so it would definitely cause a commotion and attract many forces. Just in time, Jun Changshao put away his fishing rod and said, "I can ask about the herbs." Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Not long after, the space above the Ultimate Heroes world gradually distorted. Streams of light and battleships drilled in as if they were in a hurry to be reincarnated. What's going on? The warriors on the plain were all stunned. They were living as usual and cultivating as usual. Suddenly, a large number of martial artists surged in, and their auras were extraordinary. This was really a bit confusing. The Realm Master of the Heavenly Heroes world. The Realm Master of the Vast Heroes world. The Realm Master of Sister Long Ying. The Realm Master of the Vast Heroes world. Everyone saw the appearance of the newcomers clearly, and they were shocked to the extreme. These were all top figures of the Lin Tian region. Why did they suddenly come to the Ultimate Heroes world? Could it be that someone caused some big trouble and was targeted by the entire universe? Whoosh whoosh. Just as everyone was shocked, a vast and profound aura appeared, instantly enveloping the entire world, completely stabilizing the restless space. The Ultimate Hero's world had an upper limit. Now that so many big shots had suddenly come, they definitely couldn't withstand it. Jun Changshao stabilized the main world system with his cultivation. Even if there were still forces coming in wave after wave, they still couldn't shake it at all. This move really shocked the powerhouses of all worlds. Originally, they still had some doubts, but now they immediately dispelled them and obediently retracted their auras. They all cupped their hands and said, "Greetings, Senior Qian Kuan." So many realm masters of the Lin Tian region gathered in the Ultimate Hero's world and bowed to Jun Changshao, who was sitting by the lake. The scene was simply too shocking. Everyone. Jun Changshao stood up and said with his hands behind his back, "Please come down for a chat." He was very calm and had a very elegant demeanor. It was hard to imagine that this was a big slut from the Eternal Region. Chapter 2006. My name is Red Phosphorus Lake. I'm a little panicked right now. That's because there are dozens of realm lords standing in front of me. They can evaporate the water in me with a single breath. Cough, cough. Sang Qingtian stood in front of Jun Changshao and raised his head slightly. In terms of seniority, he was lower than the realm lords, and in terms of strength, he was inferior. Now that the seniors were present, he was fearless and could even sit on equal footing with them. That was a great feeling. Senior Qian Kuan. A white-haired old man cupped his fists. I heard that you've entered the land of eternal life? Why have you suddenly returned? Let's not talk about that first. Jun Changshao said, let's talk about business first. With that, Sang Qingtian strode forward and placed the prescription on the stone table. Senior Qian Kuan needs to find the herbs listed here. I hope you can provide effective clues. Herbs. Everyone exchanged glances. Even though they were filled with doubts, they still released their spiritual consciousnesses to look at the herbs listed and fell into deep thought. Jun Changshao had been paying attention to their expressions the entire time. When he saw that they were all frowning, his heart turned cold. Sigh. It was too difficult. The system said, it's fine if you can't find it. At least you can save some chapters for your child. Senior Qian Kuan. The white-haired old man pondered for a moment and said, the herbs listed in this prescription should be found in the spirit medicine world. Jun Changshao's eyes lit up. Senior. Sang Qingtian sent a voice transmission. The spirit medicine world is one of the most mysterious dimensions in the Lin Tian region. It's said that there are countless herbs and heavenly treasures that can bring living beings back to life. Bring living beings back to life? Jun Changshao said, that's a little magical. Even though Go Sheng was invincible right now, he was still unable to bring living beings back to life. In fact, he could only rely on cheating to revive Xiao Ziji. Therefore, heavenly treasures that could bring living beings back to life were rather heaven-defying. Elder Lu's wife is still in the coffin. If we can find such a treasure, we might be able to revive her. At that thought, Jun Changshao asked, where is the spirit medicine world? This, the white-haired elder shook his head and said, this world is extremely mysterious. No one knows where it is, and only those who are fated can find it. Not bad. Sang Qingtian said, indeed. Are there any other clues? Jun Changshao asked. No. Everyone said helplessly. All right. Jun Changshao waved his hand, and several jars of fine wine appeared in front of the big shots out of thin air. He said, everyone has come from afar, so this old man doesn't have much to offer you. I only have this fine wine that I personally brewed. I hope you don't mind. For 1,000 years, Lan Kong had been brewing wine. He had even infused the power of immortal music into it, allowing drunken life and dreaming to make a qualitative leap. Furthermore, there were also quite a few series. For example, it was suitable for ordinary people to drink, suitable for middle and low-end martial artists to drink, and suitable for high-end martial artists to drink. The wine that Jun Changshao brought out was a high-end wine. If it was measured by the brand and value of the world, it would definitely be the Mao Tai of the martial arts world. This, looking at the wine jars in front of them, the experts from the various material planes hesitated. What if it was poisonous wine? If you don't drink, I'm going to take it away, Jun Changshao said. Drink, drink, drink. The white-haired old man opened the wine jar hurriedly, and the fragrance of the wine wafted through the forest. Everyone took a whiff and felt refreshed. Gulp! The white-haired old man did not care about his status, and raised his head to drink the wine. The sweet wine entered his stomach. Under the stimulation of the power of immortal music, his consciousness and even his soul were deeply stimulated, allowing him to sense the profound mysteries hidden in the world. However, the alcohol was a little strong. The white-haired old man's face turned red and his body began to sway. He did not care about embarrassing himself in front of everyone and allowed the alcohol to stimulate his consciousness. He had already begun to comprehend the profound mysteries in a frenzy. The more engrossed he was, the more obvious he was drunk. The big shots of the various material planes waited for a while. Although the white-haired old man was a little drunk, he was shrouded in some sort of energy. Therefore, they opened the jars and drank. A moment later, in the forest outside Red Phosphorus Lake, the top big shots from various material planes were all swaying, and they were all in a drunken state. This drunkenness was nothing more than on the surface. In fact, they were currently in a particularly magical state. Once they woke up, they would definitely benefit greatly. As expected, a few hours later, everyone woke up from their drunken state and stood in place, wild with joy. Drinking a mouthful of drunken dream did not allow them to break through, but the comprehension of the profound mysteries of heaven and earth was obvious. Even if they spent hundreds or thousands of years to comprehend on their own, they might not be able to achieve such an effect. This wine was heaven-defying. Everyone! This wine is called Drunken Dream. You can drink a mouthful every day to comprehend the profound mysteries of heaven and earth. Whoever can find the spiritual medicine world for me will be rewarded with 10 jars. Jun Changshao could not possibly search for it himself. After all, the universe was so big. If he prepared some benefits for them to search for it, they should be able to find it very quickly. We accept the order. The big shots of the various material planes who had experienced the benefits said in unison. They hurriedly put the unfinished drunken dream into their spatial rings and left excitedly. It was not hard to imagine. When they returned home, the 30-second universe would definitely be lively. As expected, a few days later, the various material planes and major forces began to move. Streaks of light and battleships spread out in all directions. Their mission was very simple. That was to find the spiritual medicine world and obtain 10 jars of drunken dream from Senior Qian Kuan. With their strength, ordinary treasures of heaven and earth could not bring about martial arts benefits, but magical wine could, so it was very precious and important. The effect is not bad. Jun Changshao was still traveling in the world of ultimate heroes, but he could still receive information from various realms. Thus, he rubbed his chin and said, "After I return, I can ask Lan Kong to study it more. Perhaps I'll be able to get rich by living a drunken life." Schwa! He opened the system skillfully and refreshed the store. There was a fixed number of times every month, and Jun Changshao had formed a habit. In the past, there was nothing good. Until today, after the last refresh, an item appeared in the item column. It was called the Map of the Spiritual Medicine World. It refreshed just like that? Jun Changshao hugged his head and collapsed. I gave out so many drunken dreams before, isn't it? That's right. The system gloated. The host suffered a loss. Chapter 2007. Just as the powerhouses of the Lin Tian region were searching for the medicine world for befuddlement, Jun Changshao had already relied on the shop to get the map. Cheating. Because the purchase required contribution points, this piece had already collapsed, so it was effortless to buy it. The map was a bit old, and from the touch, it was like a sheepskin scroll. Why would someone leave a map? Jun Changshao was a bit puzzled. Most of the things bought in the shop were stolen. This meant that someone should have deliberately left the map of the medicine world behind, as if they were afraid that they couldn't find the way. At this time, Jun Changshao found a small special text at the bottom left corner of the map, so he said, "Translate it for me." The system said, "No need to translate, this is a surprise." Jun Changshao roared, "Translate it for me, what the F***ck is it called surprise ba? Translate the text content." The system then understood and began to translate the text on the map, saying, "I once planted a kind of heaven and earth treasure called soul summoning fruit in the medicine world. Anyone who obtains this map can easily find it." Soul summoning fruit? Jun Changshao said in surprise. Can it bring the dead back to life? This judgment came from the word soul summoning. It should be, the system said. It was rare for the two of them to be on the same side, with the same thoughts, without bickering or ridiculing each other. It seems. Jun Changshao laughed. Not only a map, but also a treasure map. After saying that, he studied it carefully. This map was a bit strange, without the usual boxes and bars, and without geographical location and coordinates, only a pentagon-like pattern, and a black dot in the center area. Jun Changshao held his chin and said, "It doesn't look like a map." After studying for a night, his head was about to explode. "What's wrong?" Rose of Flowers was awakened, got out of bed with her long hair in a mess, and stopped in front of Jun Changshao barefoot, habitually put her hand on her husband's shoulder, and there was still a trace of tiredness in her charming eyes. This damn lingering temperament, it was the easiest to make people's heart beat faster. It had to be said. Rose of Flowers was becoming more and more feminine. Jun Changshao was not bad-looking either. The children of these two people, regardless of whether it was a boy or a girl, would probably be at the level of a monster in terms of appearance. This map. Jun Changshao rubbed his temples and said, "I don't understand at all." Rose of Flowers gently leaned back and rested her chin on his head. She then looked at the map on the table and curiously asked, "Is there anything my husband doesn't understand?" "Nonsense," Jun Changshao said, "there's a lot that I don't know." After 1,000 years of comprehension and cultivation, he realized that there was no end to martial arts. Although he had already reached the peak level, there were still many unknowns that he needed to explore. "Let me take a look." Rose of Flowers looked at it carefully and gave her opinion. "This is not like a map, but more like a scene." "Scene? You don't say, it does smell like that." After being reminded by Rose of Flowers, Jun Changshao immediately realized that the pentagram was more like 5 natural scenes, or even 5 planes, arranged in a regular pattern around the black dot. "I understand now. This is some star field. As long as we find the corresponding pentagram, we should be able to find the medicine world. Let's go. Let's hurry and find it." Jun Changshao pulled Rose of Flowers and was about to leave when the latter hurriedly said, "I'm still wearing my pajamas." This, in the living room, Sang Qingtian frowned. It was early in the morning, but he reeked of alcohol. That's right, he drank an entire bowl of Drunken Dream yesterday, and the smell of alcohol had yet to dissipate. "Senior," Sang Qingtian said, this junior has some impression. Bring me there." Since there were some clues, Jun Changshao could not wait to reach the destination and search for the herbs in the prescription. "However," Sang Qingtian said, "this place is a top-secret forbidden area of the Lin Tian region. If you trespass, you will easily lose your life." Jun Changshao's eyes suddenly turned cold. "Are you doubting my strength?" Jie. Sang Qingtian was dumbfounded. "That's right. This is Senior Qian Kuan, a legendary expert. How can I measure him with the mentality of an ordinary person?" "No, no, no," Sang Qingtian hurriedly explained, "this junior." No need to say any more. Jun Changshao said, bring me there quickly. Okay. Every universe had its own mysterious mystic realms or forbidden areas, and the Lin Tian region was no exception. In fact, there were more of them. Actually, mystic realms and forbidden areas were more like dungeons. Although they were full of danger, they were also accompanied by opportunities. Since ancient times, countless lives had died, but countless people had also soared. This was not. Under Sang Qingtian's lead, Jun Changshao stopped at the most dangerous forbidden area of the Lin Tian region, where opportunities and dangers coexisted. From God's perspective, there were 5 planes around the entrance. They faintly outlined the angle of a pentagram. That's right. Jun Changshao took out the sheepskin scroll. After a few comparisons, he said, this is the place. Let's go. Let's go in. Sang Qingtian took a deep breath and was about to follow when Jun Changshao added, wait outside. All right. He really did not go. He stood at the door and watched the two of them walk in until their figures completely disappeared into the darkness. His eyes were filled with joy and worry. He was happy that he did not have to enter the forbidden area and risk his life. He was worried that he could not witness Senior Qian Kuan creating the forbidden area with his own eyes. Sigh. Sang Qingtian sighed. I'm conflicted. The inside of the forbidden area was a passageway. The surrounding space was distorted, and it felt like they were passing through time. What had Jun Changshao and Rows of Flowers not seen before? Therefore, they were already used to it. They did not even feel the slightest ripple in their hearts as they walked. After walking for about an hour, there was a white light at the end. When the two of them passed through, they stopped at a place that looked like a cliff. There's no path. Jun Changshao said in surprise. Husband. Rows of Flowers pointed to the wall at the side and asked, what's that? Jun Changshao looked over and found a square pit in the middle of the wall. It looked like some kind of secret compartment, but also like, wait! Why did it match the size and specifications of the sheepskin scroll so well? Jun Changshao walked over, hurriedly took out the map, and carefully stuck it on. Needless to say, it was indeed very compatible. Buzz! At this moment, the wall and ground suddenly shook, and waves of heat surged out from below the cliff. Roar! A deafening roar came from below the cliff, giving off the feeling that it came from the depths of hell. Back off! Jun Changshao frowned. Rows of Flowers stood behind him obediently. Although the surrounding atmosphere was slightly oppressive, she was not worried at all. She was even curious if there was some kind of special demon beast hidden here. Whoosh whoosh! At this moment, demonic aura spread out from below the cliff. Soon, they saw a huge head rushing up, followed by 2 arms and a body. Finally, it was like a mountain in front of the two of them. In terms of form, it looked like a giant, but in terms of color and facial features, it was closer to a demon. Humans! The monster said coldly, you are courting death. No. Why are the eyes of the young man who is as weak as an ant shining? Rows of Flowers also noticed Jun Changshao's expression, so she said speechlessly, such an ugly demon beast, are you going to capture it and make it a guardian beast? Chapter 2008. Rows of Flowers was right. Jun Changshao was indeed tempted by the sudden appearance of the huge monster. It was undeniable that it was a little ugly. However, judging from its aura, it was not weaker than a heavenly secret. Take it down. Put it in the Sect of all times as a guard. Jun Changshao had dared to do this many times over the past 1,000 years. When he passed by a certain plane and encountered a special beast, he subdued it and made it a guard beast. Damn it! The monster did not realize the danger and said angrily, what's with that look in your eyes? I love your eyes, Jun Changshao said. Ugh! The monster almost vomited. Jun Changshao said, below the abyss leads to the medicine's spiritual world? That's right. The monster said coldly. Found it. Jun Changshao's smile became even brighter. This angered the monster. It raised its arms and slammed them down, roaring, "I'll guard this place. You can't move an inch." Whoosh whoosh. A mountain-like palm pressed down, stirring up a cold gust of wind. This monster was indeed very powerful. If it was Sang Qingtian, he might not be able to withstand it. However, standing in front of it was Jun Changshao. As the founder of the Eternal Realm and under the great art of spring and autumn for 1,000 years, his strength had reached the peak. But the moment the huge palm pressed down, Jun Changshao raised his hand and caught it with his middle and index fingers. Energy ripples visible to the naked eye quickly spread out, crazily attacking the surrounding stone walls. Rows of flowers stood behind, her hair fluttering in the wind, but she was not disturbed at all. With her husband around, she was very safe. Whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh. The huge hand seemed to be frozen in place. No matter how much energy pressed down, it was still unable to move Jun Changshao's 2 fingers. How is this possible? The monster's eyes widened. Then, it poured energy into its arm with a face full of anger, trying to crush the human in front of it into powder. Unfortunately, no matter how hard it tried, it could not sink down at all. Jun Changshao's 2 fingers were like pillars, holding up heaven and earth. Who? The monster was naturally unwilling to give up. It raised its other hand and pressed down. However, even with the support of the 2 forces, the human was still standing there with a smile on his face. His mentality collapsed. Damn it! The monster retracted its palms and breathed in and out. The heaven and earth attributes in the surroundings surged into its body. It let out a ferocious roar and pressed its palms down with terrifying power. Futile struggle. Jun Changshao shook his head. With a tap of his toes, he went to meet the 2 palms. Then, with unpredictable movements, he stopped in front of the monster and slowly raised his hand. Outside the forbidden area, Sang Qingtian asked worriedly, "Is Senior Qiankuan all right?" Rumble. Suddenly, a deafening rumble resounded from within, and it shocked him to the point he hurriedly retreated over 3 kilometers while cold sweat broke out on his back. Hoo-hoo! At the same time, billowing waves of air gushed out from the forbidden grounds, spreading along the vast universe. Sang Qingtian's expression changed drastically, especially when he felt the rampaging energy. His scalp went from numb to bursting. This commotion, this aura, it was terrifying to the extreme. Who? The first person Sang Qingtian thought of was Senior Qiankuan. From what he knew, no one in the Lin Tian region could reach such a terrifying level. Crack crack. At this moment, a cracking sound could be heard. Sang Qingtian's eyes gradually widened. Then, he exclaimed, "The secret forbidden area cracked." That's right. This forbidden area that had existed in the Lin Tian region for a long time suddenly suffered a terrifying explosion and finally cracked. Rumble. Another explosion resounded. The secret forbidden area that could still be salvaged was instantly damaged, and the cracking speed increased. Not good! Sang Qingtian exclaimed and immediately turned to flee. His reaction was quite fast. If he had been a little later, he might have rumble. Suddenly, a powerful explosion occurred at the entrance of the secret forbidden area. The surrounding space immediately collapsed into pieces, and the shock wave instantly spread far and wide. Poof! Although Sang Qingtian dodged quickly, he still could not outrun the shock wave from the explosion. Therefore, he was still affected. Not only was he sent flying, but his meridians and organs were also damaged. What's that commotion? The cultivators in the various regions of the Lin Tian region heard the explosion clearly. Shock appeared on their faces. It's very far. It seems to be in the secret forbidden area. Let's go and take a look. Swish, swish, swish. In an instant, countless powerful cultivators flew towards the secret forbidden area. It was not hard to imagine that when they arrived, they would definitely be like Sang Qingtian, rooted to the spot as if they had been struck by lightning, unable to regain their senses for a long time. Why was that? Because the secret forbidden area was gone. Because hundreds of miles of space had collapsed. In the center of the chaotic area, the rose of flowers floated in the air and shook her head. Another forbidden area has been destroyed. Sang Qingtian swallowed his saliva and continued to release his spiritual senses. He discovered that Senior Qiankuan was standing in front of his wife, standing in front of a huge demon beast. Why did this demon beast look so similar to the Chaos Demon King recorded in the ancient books? Remove the word similar, and it would be the Chaos Demon King. Could it be? Sang Qingtian's mind spun quickly. The commotion just now was caused by it? It was an ancient gray demon beast and was definitely powerful. However, it was a little exaggerated to destroy the secret forbidden area. Wait, there were 2 dents on its face. It was beaten up? Plop! At this moment, half of Chaos Demon King's body and head fell to the ground like mud. The secret forbidden area no longer existed. Only the limited area where Jun Changshao was standing and the abyss ahead remained. You have to be gentler. You won't get beaten up. Jun Changshao squatted down and placed one hand on the Chaos Demon King's head, signing the contract in a domineering manner. The signing of the contract required the consent of both parties. However, the Chaos Demon King fainted after being punched twice. There was no need to ask. Swish, not long after, the contract was signed. Jun Changshao took out a gate palm ball from his spatial ring and kept the Chaos Demon King inside. Don't ask how he got it. He bought it from the shop. Let's go. Jun Changshao said, let's go down. Okay. The 2 jumped down the cliff hand in hand. Sang Qingtian, who was standing in the distance, was stunned. The secret forbidden area was destroyed by Senior Qiankuan, and an ancient gray demon king was also subdued by him. How terrifying! Legendary! As expected of a legendary. At that moment, Sang Qingtian's adoration for Jun Changshao was like an endless torrential river. Swish! Swish! At that moment, the experts closest to the secret forbidden area rushed over. When they saw the collapsed space and the abyss in the universe, they were all dumbfounded. Sorry. Sang Qingtian turned around and said, you're late. You didn't see Senior Qiankuan do it. There was obvious pride on his face, as if to tell everyone that it was a pity that they didn't see it. However, I saw it. Chapter 2009. The extreme north of the Eternal Realm. There was a world of ice and snow called the Ice Realm. Shua! Shua! A graceful girl about 14 or 15 years old was cultivating. Wherever her sword light passed, layers of thick snow would roll up. Her name was Emomushi. She was originally the daughter of an ordinary family. By chance, she became the disciple of an expert and embarked on the path of martial arts. Because she was very compatible with the ice attribute, she broke through to the core transformation realm in just a few years. She could be considered a genius. A moment later, Emomushi withdrew her sword and bowed respectfully. Master, I have comprehended the 1,000-heart-chilling sword technique. I wonder if I can participate in the universe sacred war in 10 years? On the iceberg in front of her stood a graceful woman. Although her face was covered by a white veil and it was difficult to see her appearance, her body exuded an aura that was colder than the environment. Far from it, the cold woman said indifferently. There was no emotion in her words. It was as cold as the iceberg under her feet. Emomushi was used to it. She had cultivated with her master for 3 years, and it had always been like this. Those who are qualified to participate in the universe sacred war are all the top geniuses in the world. Therefore, in 10 years, you must break through to the truth-seeking realm, the woman said again. Truth-seeking realm? Emomushi thought to herself, it's unreachable. Remember, the woman continued, ice-type warriors emphasize on the heart being as still as water. If there are any attachments, it will eventually become an obstacle on the path of martial arts. Emomushi said, I will remember Master's teachings. Perhaps it was because her master suddenly said so many words to her that she mustered up her courage and asked weakly, "Master is so powerful. Has your heart been as still as water and you have no attachments?" "No." "Ah." This answer surprised Emomushi. Her master was also an ice-type powerhouse. She had even demonstrated to her how she could freeze an entire plane with a wave of her hand. Her heart was as still as water? "Mushi," the woman said indifferently, "the most unforgettable thing in the world is love. In the future, when you go out to train, don't fall in love with men. Otherwise, you will harm yourself in the end." "I understand." Emomushi thought to herself, "Master must be in love." After saying that, she secretly glanced at the bracelet on her master's wrist and muttered in her heart, "It's obviously a very ordinary treasure, but master is particularly concerned about it. I'm afraid it was given by that person who fell in love with it. This girl is very meticulous. Let's go." The woman said, "Follow me back to the sect." "Sect?" Emomushi was surprised. "I am the eldest disciple of the sect of all times. Since you are my disciple, you are naturally a disciple of the sect as well," the woman said. Sect of all times? Emomushi had never heard of it. His background was originally very ordinary. After becoming a disciple of a master, he came to the world of ice and snow to cultivate. Naturally, he had never heard of the legendary sects that were famous throughout the eternal domain. Swish! Today the ice world flickered with resplendent white light that pierced through heaven and earth, not dissipating for a long time. In a hut in the countryside, smoke curled up from the chimney. Straighten your posture. In a clean courtyard, a bearded middle-aged man in rough clothes said with his hands behind his back. "Yes." Li Guiyuan, who was about 3 or 4 years old, hurriedly straightened his body. Although he was still a child, his posture was very standard. At a glance, one could tell that he was cut out for martial arts. "Stand for 2 hours." "Yes." His father's words were an order. Li Guiyuan did not dare to disobey. "Husband." At this moment, a beautiful woman in plain clothes walked out and complained, "Guiyuan is still a child. The path of martial arts needs to be cultivated from a young age," the man in rough clothes said. "Mother." Li Guiyuan smiled and said, "I'm not tired." This child was very sensible. His mother shook her head, and could only return to the kitchen to prepare breakfast. 2 hours later, the little guy relaxed from his stance, and then sat on the ground. He wiped the sweat on his forehead and said with a smile, "Father, tell me the story of the patriarch of the sect of all times." "Okay." The man in rough clothes sat down and patted his son's little head with a smile. "Your name was given by the patriarch of the sect of all times. He took it from the lotus hat with the setting sun. The green mountain returns to the distance." "Really?" The little guy was so excited that he almost jumped up. Doraemon expressed that with Go Xing's intelligence, it was impossible for him to come up with such an elegant name. There was definitely a problem. Although he was only 3 years old, unlike Emomushi who was ignorant of the world, Li Guiyuan often fell asleep listening to the stories of the sect of all times. He especially admired the sect master the most. Unexpectedly, he was the one who gave his name. "Father," Li Guiyuan said excitedly, "do you know the patriarch of the sect of all times?" "Yes." "Wow! Father is so amazing!" The man in rough clothes used his small hand to touch the tip of his son's nose and said with a smile, "Father will take you to the sect of all times, okay? Isn't the sect of all times very far away from us?" Li Guiyuan asked blankly. "Close your eyes," the man in rough clothes said with a face full of affection. "Okay." Li Guiyuan did as he was told. In an instant, he felt the sky darken. When he opened his eyes again, his bright eyes gradually widened. In his field of vision was a towering huge palace surrounded by clouds and mist. It was like the fairyland that his father had mentioned, and the big sign with the words, "Unyielding Iron Bones," was particularly dazzling and eye-catching. "Son," the man in rough clothes said, "this is the sect of all times." The little guy was so shocked that he didn't recover for a long time. At this time, several sect disciples in coquettish clothes walked over and carefully looked at the dazed Li Guiyuan. They said in unison, "Second senior brother, your son looks so much like you. It's as if he was carved out of the same mold." "Nonsense." Li Tiantian, who was carrying a camera, happened to pass by. He glared at his junior brothers and said, "Of course, second senior brother's son looks like second senior brother. Could it be that he looks like, senior brother, be careful?" Someone exclaimed. Whoosh! At this moment, the happy football flew close to the ground at a high speed. After it reached his crotch, it suddenly rushed up. Just as it was about to hit his chin, Li Tianshan looked at the camera with a calm face and shrugged. A familiar smell. Boom! Thousands of miles away, after confirming that the ball hit the target, Li Fei slowly retracted his foot and said, "This is what happens when you don't know how to speak." One black and two black roared. "You kicked the ball first," and he spoke later. "It was just a coincidence." "Father," Li Guiyuan finally recovered. He turned to look at his father and found that he had already taken off his rough clothes and changed into the sect's uniform made of high-quality materials. "Son." Li Qingyang put his hand on his head and looked at the plaque hanging in the main hall. He said seriously, "Father is the second disciple of the sect of all times. The stone slabs under your feet and the buildings you see were all built by Father." Boom! Li Guiyuan exploded. "My father is the second disciple of the sect of all times. From today onwards, you are the second-generation disciple of the sect of all times. As your father, I hope that you can practice martial arts diligently and wholeheartedly assist the future young patriarch." This sentence was deeply imprinted in Li Guiyuan's heart. Even when he became an adult, he still remembered his father's teachings and was still waiting for the young patriarch. Even if he was cut in half by the Jianghu later on, the story of the second generation continued silently in a place where the readers could not see. After more than a month, many of the characters were a little unfamiliar. Who knew when the next update would be? Chapter 2010. The Falling Star Continent. A plain with many sections. There was no shortage of strong cultivators here, nor was there a shortage of opportunities. For example, a long time ago, someone accidentally obtained an ancient martial art and put it to use. He established the Taishan Xingzong, and after many years of development, he finally became a top force. Today's side story. Let's start with this sect. Northeast Lu State. It was a place of extreme cold. According to the investigation of meteorologists, this state was extremely cold for at least 7 months every year. Especially in the northernmost Taishan mountain, the temperature was so low that it was difficult for people to survive. However, in such a harsh environment, there was a sect standing tall. The Taishan Xingzong, one of the top sects in the Falling Star Continent. In the world of martial arts, it was a colossus. Phew! The cold wind blew, and the gatekeeping disciple shivered. "It's colder today than yesterday. It's strange. The winters in recent years have been getting colder and colder." Perhaps because of the cold temperature, the two gatekeeping disciples whispered and rubbed their hands. Senior brother duo. The obviously young disciple on the left asked curiously, "You've been in the sect for many years. Have you seen that person?" "That person?" The disciple on the right seemed to understand and shook his head in self-mockery. "She's the personal disciple of the Grand Elder. How could an entry-level disciple like me have seen her?" The disciples of the Taishan Xingzong were divided into 4 categories: entry-level, outer-level, inner-level, and personal disciples. If there was a difference, it meant that too much time had passed. "I'm not proud of it at all. Please don't praise me." Alas. The new entry-level disciple sighed. "When can I become a personal disciple?" "Come on." The disciple with the surname Duo said, With your talent, you should be thankful to be an outer-level disciple. Personal disciple? Daydreaming. That's true. While the two of them were talking, several fellow disciples gradually appeared on the stairs of the mountain gate. From their clothes and accessories, it was clear that they were inner sect disciples, especially the teenage girl who walked at the front. She was like the moon surrounded by stars. Most of the Taishan Xingzong disciples wore snow-white robes, but she wore crimson-red, which made her look like an eye-catching flame in the snow-filled sky. When the two disciples saw this, they immediately straightened their back. When the girl walked over, they hurriedly bowed and said, "Greetings, Senior Sister Fang." In terms of age, the two of them were a few years older than the girl. The reason he addressed her as Senior Sister was because she had already become an inner disciple. Furthermore, she had even become the disciple of an elder. Even though her future achievements would not be as great as that person's, she would definitely have a bright future. The ranking of Taishan Xingzong's senior and junior brothers was not determined by the time they entered the sect. Whoever had the highest status and strength would be the bigger one. Yes. The girl nodded and walked into the sect under the escort of the crowd. When the two disciples saw her leave, they immediately let out a long sigh of relief and excitedly said, "Senior Duo, we're actually lucky enough to meet Senior Sister Fang today." "Calm down," Disciple Duo said. "Wow, Senior Brother Duo is really calm." "Of course," Disciple Duo said proudly, "there are countless inner disciples. It's not like I saw that person. What's there to be excited about?" As soon as he said that, several disciples who were walking into the sect suddenly stopped. One of them turned around and said coldly, "You're not even an outer disciple. What qualifications do you have to talk about inner disciples?" "This is bad." Disciple Duo suddenly felt that something was wrong. Sure enough, several inner disciples surrounded him, and he hurriedly held his head and squatted on the ground. He was so skillful that it made others feel sorry for him. If he said something wrong, he would be beaten. For many outer disciples, this was a common occurrence. Quite cooperative? Seeing this, several inner disciples shook their heads and walked over with fists clenched. Fang Lingyu, who was surrounded by stars, remained silent. Although there was no expression on her face, there was a strong jealousy deep in her heart. In terms of aptitude and appearance, she was not inferior to her. However, just because the other party entered the sect earlier and was accepted as a personal disciple, she would always be suppressed. She was not reconciled. At this time, the inner disciples had already surrounded Disciple Duo. From the looks of it, punches and kicks were inevitable. "There's a show to watch. It seems to be Junior Brother Duo. Wasn't he just beaten up a few days ago? Why is he being targeted again? Needless to say, he must have a bad mouth." The outer disciples in the distance whispered, and no one dared to step forward to stop him. Whoosh! The inner disciples prepared for a while, and were about to be violent when they suddenly felt a gust of cold wind blowing, and the surrounding temperature instantly dropped a lot. Everyone shuddered and subconsciously looked at the mountain gate. They saw a graceful figure appear on the stairs. Accompanied by snowflakes, she looked like an otherworldly fairy. "It's her." "Her? Who?" Disciple Duo, who was ready to be beaten, looked through the gaps between his fingers and happened to see a young girl walking up. She should not be old, about 13 or 14 years old. However, that delicate face, that delicate nose, and that long hair that poured down like the Milky Way from the ninth heaven all proved that she would definitely be a beauty in the future. Senior Sister Fang was young, but she was already very beautiful. However, compared to her, there was no comparison, no matter if it was appearance, temperament, or other aspects. It was an absolute crush, an absolute instant kill. Disciple Duo did not come from a good family and did not receive a good education. At this moment, he could only use a simple word to describe her: fairy. Several inner disciples were also stunned. They were not attracted by the girl's beauty, but schwa. In an instant, everyone stood up straight, their hands trembling slightly, and shouted loudly, "Greetings, Senior Sister Lu." After saying that, the girl had already brushed past them. During the whole process, there was no eye contact or verbal communication, as if they did not exist. Several inner disciples stood in place awkwardly. Thinking of Senior Sister Lu's usual cold and aloof character, they immediately eased a lot. Senior Sister Lu. At this time, Fong Lingyu stopped the girl and smiled. "Did you go down the mountain to do a mission?" Young age. Smiling sweetly. It was easy for people, including women, to feel protective of such a little girl. "Yes." Senior Sister Lu stopped in her tracks and responded. There was nothing special about her voice, but it was cold. When the inner disciples who were ignored heard this, they all exclaimed in their hearts. She actually took the initiative to talk to her fellow disciples. These people enjoy bullying their fellow disciples. Don't have too much contact with them. Senior Sister Lu said lightly. Every word was like a knife that stabbed into the hearts of several inner disciples. "I will remember Senior Sister Lu's teachings." Fong Lingyu smiled and said, "Junior Sister has some doubts about martial arts, please. Let's go back and talk." Senior Sister Lu left. Fong Lingyu hurriedly chased after her. At the same time, she did not forget to shout at the inner disciples behind her, "Don't bully your fellow disciples in the future." "Yes, yes." Several inner disciples hurriedly nodded, but their hearts collapsed. "Aren't we doing this for you?" After being criticized by Senior Sister Lu and warned by Senior Sister Fong, they naturally did not dare to touch Disciple Duo again. They could only shake their heads and leave with a sigh. But as soon as they left, the sound of a slap came. Disciple Duo raised his hand and slapped himself again, then muttered to himself, "It's not a dream, it's not a dream, it's really her." Another disciple guarding the door said, "Senior Brother Duo, who is she? Who else could it be?" Looking at the fading figure, the disciple with the multiple surnames said in a trembling voice, "It's the one I just mentioned, the one who was accepted as a personal disciple by the Grand Elder. Senior Sister Lu, Lu Qianqian." She's Lu Qianqian. Do you want to die? How dare you shout so loudly? Creak. Lu Qianqian pushed the door and entered. Fong Lingyu, who was following behind, hesitated because this was the Celestial Ice Heart Palace, the residence of the personal disciples. Other disciples were not qualified to enter. "Senior Sister Lu, can I enter?" she asked weakly. "Yes." Although Lu Qianqian's voice was cold, there was still some warmth in it. It was much better than before, perhaps because the other party was her junior sister. "Thank you, Senior Sister Lu." Fong Lingyu hurried in and looked enviously at the magnificent building inside. She sighed with emotion, "It's so beautiful." "As long as you work hard, one day you will also have the qualifications to live here," Lu Qianqian said. Fong Lingyu nodded heavily and remembered these words deep in her heart. Night fell. Fong Lingyu happily left the Celestial Ice Heart Palace. Under Lu Qianqian's guidance, she had a new understanding of martial arts. This made her fellow disciples envious. Senior Sister Lu was a proud daughter of heaven in the sect. Being able to receive her guidance would definitely benefit a lot. Back to Lu Qianqian. After Fong Lingyu left, she sat cross-legged on the ice bed and was about to cultivate when an old voice suddenly sounded in her ear. "You helped her again?" An old woman appeared out of thin air in the room. Although her face was haggard, her eyes shone with a cold luster. Lu Qianqian hurriedly got up and bowed. "Greetings, Master." It turned out that this old woman, who was like a candle in the wind, was the only remaining Grand Elder of the sect. "Girl. Disciples of the sect have to compete. If you never tire of teaching others, I'm afraid you will be replaced in the future and even lose everything." Lu Qianqian had heard such words many times. She said disapprovingly, "This disciple believes that if a sect wants to prosper, fellow disciples should help each other. That was in the past." The Grand Elder said with a sullen face, Taishan Xingzong is now a top sect. If you want to stand out from the other disciples, you have to rely on your own efforts and learn to be wary of others. Lu Qianqian was silent. She respected her master very much, but she did not agree with some of her ideas. The Grand Elder also knew her disciples' thoughts and did not explain further. She changed the topic. How's your cultivation of the cultivation method? This disciple is ignorant and still stopped at the first level, Lu Qianqian said with shame. There's no hurry. The Grand Elder said, You have the Taishan Ice-Heart body. Sooner or later, you will comprehend the highest level and truly achieve a heart as calm as water. Heart as calm as water? Lu Qianqian whispered to herself. However, the Grand Elder said with a serious expression, if you want to comprehend this level, you must abide by your heart and not be moved by emotions. Otherwise, all your previous efforts will be wasted. This disciple will remember. The day after tomorrow, the sect will assign you a special mission. You will need to go on a long journey. Prepare yourself. Yes. After explaining the matter, the Grand Elder turned and left. Master, where are we going? Qingyang County. To be continued. Chapter 2011. Jun Changshao would definitely be present at a lively place. Therefore, he made a move. He felt a little embarrassed. After all, the Universe 9 Seals palm was stolen by the system and Sang Qingtian had to take the blame. Sigh. Rose of Flowers, who was far away, held her forehead and said, I'm in trouble again. Given her husband's strength, it was not a problem for him to deal with 3 experts. However, he had just arrived and if he made a move rashly, he would easily offend the forces behind them. Who are you? Although the old lady's body was controlled, her tone was unusually cold and there was another meaning in her words. Why should I give you face? That's normal. Go Xing had no face. Another outsider. Why should I give him face? I'm just a passerby. Jun Changshao said, I can't stand seeing you guys bullying me with numbers. It was indeed a little too much to gang up on one person. As someone from the pugilistic world, he would help even if the secret manual was stolen from the system. Furthermore, things were already very obvious. They were here for the secret manual and Sang Qingtian did not get it. However, he still attacked them unreasonably. That was a little bullying. Kid. The old man who was being controlled said in a deep voice, You're on a narrow path. Friend. Sang Qingtian said, This is between me and them. Since you're passing by, please leave. Don't get yourself killed because of me. This person was not bad. I'm sorry, Jun Changshao said, there's already karma between us. Sang Qingtian was puzzled. Although the young man in front of him had an imposing appearance, he was sure that he had never seen him before. How could there be karma between them? You went to the ancient tomb to look for the secret manual, and I took it away. That's the cause. Now that we met by chance in the vast universe, that's the effect, Jun Changshao said. What? Sang Qingtian said in shock. You took the secret manual? This voice even contained a trace of anger. After all, he'd been bitterly pursued by them for a few tens of years all those years ago because of the Universe 9 seal palm, and his days were filled with uncertainty. Phew! At this moment, Jun Changshao retracted his aura, freeing the 3 of them. He then leaped into the air, and his right hand cut through the void, shouting, Spirit Seal! Sanskrit Seal! Extreme Seal Style! Boom! 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 He struck out 9 palms in a row, and each of them struck out violently, shattering the void. Seeing this, Sang Qingtian exclaimed in shock, Not only did this guy take the manual, but he has also cultivated it to such a level? The other 3 were also dumbfounded. They could tell that Jun Changshao was trying to prove to them that he had cultivated the 9 Prince Universe palm. However, under that calm demeanor, he was able to unleash an earth-shattering power. His strength was definitely unfathomable. Lin Tianyu had such a person? They frantically mobilized the memories and information in their sea of consciousness, hoping to find an identity that matched the young man's, but in the end they found nothing. 3 of you. Jun Changshao retracted his spirit energy and clasped his hands behind his back like a martial arts master. He said, "Back then, I left the scripture in the ancient tomb, hoping that someone would inherit it. In the end, no one was able to obtain it, so I had to take it back. Don't make things difficult for this child." "Me? Children?" The 3 of them looked at each other and immediately confirmed that although this person looked young, his actual age might be older than them. There was more. He left the 9-prince universe palm in the ancient tomb? Could it be? Sang Qingtian said with trembling hands, "Senior is Qiankuan perfected?" Sigh. Jun Changshao sighed and said, "What a nostalgic name." His expression and words were equivalent to an indirect admission. The expressions of the 2 men and 1 woman suddenly changed, and the confusion in their hearts was suddenly solved. It turned out that this young man was once a top mighty figure. Qiankuan perfected was Lin Tianyu, the pinnacle figure of the 32nd universe. He was active 100,000 years ago and could be considered a legend that shocked the world. It was said that he later peeped into the secrets of heaven and stepped into the land of eternal life. Not to mention who was stronger or weaker, in terms of seniority and prestige, he was basically equivalent to the former 7 Xian Supreme Lord. Jun Changshao was also awesome. He pretended to be such a figure as soon as he arrived. What was even more shocking was that the 4 experts who could be considered to be reputable actually believed it. Damn it. This was too retarded. In fact, there was a reason for their belief. First of all, Jun Changshao was strong, similar to Qiankuan perfected in the past. Second, the 9-prince universe palm was one of the martial arts created by the latter. No one had inherited it, but he could use it to a superb level. Alas, this martial art was randomly comprehended when I was seeking the Tao. I left it in the ancient tomb to wait for the fated person, but I didn't know that it had harmed so many creatures. It's really a sin. The system really couldn't help it. Today, I took back the secret book. If you want to find it, you don't need to look for others. You can come to me, Jun Changshao said. Obviously, this guy deliberately pretended to be a big shot to get rid of trouble for Sang Qingtian. The 3 of them were in a dilemma. Why don't you go? Are you waiting for tea? Jun Changshao's eyes suddenly became sharp. Goodbye. The 3 of them broke out in a cold sweat and hurriedly left. One look made them feel like they were facing an abyss. Even if they questioned the identity of Qiankuan perfected, they didn't dare to make a move. However, this was shocking news. They had to inform their own forces as soon as possible. Watching them leave, Sang Qingtian hurriedly turned around and said with a high standard of etiquette, "Thank you for saving me, senior." "No need to thank me," Jun Changshao said. "You and I are fated." Sang Qingtian was overjoyed. It was definitely a blessing to be fated with such a top mighty figure. However, after hesitating for a while, Sang Qingtian said with difficulty, "Rumor has it that Senior has entered the land of eternal life. Why are you still in Lin Tianyu?" Jun Changshao got 2 good pieces of information from his words. 1. This was Lin Tianyu. 2. This universe also knew about the land of eternal life. Sigh. Jun Changshao shook his head and said, "The land of eternal life is the secret of our eternal life. How can it be so easy to enter?" Sang Qingtian suddenly realized. It seemed that Senior Qiankuan did not enter the land of eternal life. The rumors were just groundless rumors. "Child," Jun Changshao said, "this old man has been in seclusion for 100,000 years. The world has changed. I wonder if the grotto heaven that was used for cultivation still exists?" Reporting to Senior, Sang Qingtian hurriedly said, "Your universe cave abode is still there. It is now a holy land that the younger generation of martial artists worship." Jun Changshao said, "Then I won't be going back." Speaking of which, how did he even know about the universe cave abode? It was all because of what was written in the secret manual. Pretending to be a mighty figure was not a hot-headed act, but one with absolute confidence. Unless the main body appeared, unless there were relatives and friends that he had met, otherwise, with his strength and understanding of palm techniques, it was almost impossible to be exposed. This matter tells us that when the top big shots leave behind treasures, they must not write their own experiences on it. Otherwise, it would be easy for Go Shing to seize the opportunity. After leaving for tens of thousands of years, I returned without a home. Jun Changshao looked up to the sky and sighed, his eyes filled with vicissitudes of life. In terms of acting, one could say that Go Shing was the best. Sang Qingtian carefully savored it and instantly gained something in his heart and soul. He was secretly shocked, as expected of a legendary mighty figure. Even his words contained profound meaning. "Senior," he said, "if you don't mind, please follow me to the extreme heroism realm for a few days." This, Jun Changshao pretended to consider and said, "All right." Sang Qingtian was so excited that he almost beat his chest and roared. If such a legendary figure could come to the plane where he lived, it would be a great honor and a great fortune. Jun Changshao brought rows of flowers to the extreme heroism realm as Qiankuan perfected being. "Senior." On the way, Sang Qingtian asked, "This is my most beloved woman." "So it's Senior Qing Hong. Sorry for not recognizing you." Rumor had it that Qiankuan perfected being and Qing Hong Wu were childhood sweethearts when they were young. After they got married, they were like shadows and loved each other. They were truly a model couple. This impersonation was flawless. Of course, Jun Changshao was not trying to show off his acting skills. The purpose of playing the role of Qiankuan Zhenren was very simple, which was to inquire about the situation in this universe and find the medicinal herbs in the formula. It was too troublesome to search from plane to plane, so it was better to use the name of a legendary expert to mobilize the power of the entire universe to search for him. What a cunning plan! Not to mention, while Go Shing was on his way to the ultimate hero's realm, the three people who had escaped had already sent the news to their respective forces. The news about Qiankuan Immortal's appearance spread across the entire Lin Tianyu realm, causing a great sensation. Report: Sang Qingtian has returned to the extreme heroism realm. Report: they were accompanied by a young couple. Report: the young man is exactly the same as what the three elders described. He should be Senior Qiankuan. As soon as the news came out, from God's perspective, one could see many experts, magical treasures, and warships flying out from various planes and swarming toward the ultimate hero's realm. Jun Changxiao's trip to the other universes this time was destined to not be ordinary. Read on in Chapter 2012, Extreme Heroism Realm. It was a relatively high-level plane. At this moment, Jun Changxiao followed Sang Qingtian to stay here temporarily to understand their customs, as well as martial arts and medicinal knowledge. First was the realm. This universe was divided into 3 levels, namely Human Realm, Earth Realm, and the highest Heaven Realm. Each realm had early, middle, and peak. It was said that when one reached peak Heaven Realm, one could enter the land of eternal life. In that case, Jun Changxiao said, my current strength is equivalent to peak Heaven Realm? Of course, Lin Tianyu still had many realms. However, in front of Go Shing, it was hard to say, so he didn't elaborate. In short, Human Realm, Earth Realm, and Heaven Realm corresponded to Eternal Domains Dan Transformation Realm, Truth-Seeking Realm, and Heaven's Secret Realm. The other universes should be similar, the name was random, and the effect was similar. To this, Jun Changxiao was speechless. What was the point of having a good name? It was better to simply divide them into levels from 1 to 999. So, the system roared. This is the reason why he divided the eternal domain into numbers. As mentioned before, Jun Changshao integrated the upper universe and redivided the realms. That's right, it was the simplest level from 1 to 999. There were no fancy names, nor were there complicated classifications such as upper, middle, and lower. It was just a numerical ranking. According to Go Xing's realm settings, he was already at level 999 in the Eternal Domain, which was considered a max level account. As long as he didn't open a new map or dungeon, he was invincible. As for the upper echelons and core disciples of the sect of all times, most of them were around level 800, and there was still some time before they reached the max level. What a good realm! It was turned into an online game. No wonder the system couldn't help but roar. However, what was even worse was the division of medicinal ingredients and treasures, which were also divided into levels from 1 to 999. It wasn't hard to imagine. A few years later, the warriors of the Eternal Domain would ask, "Bro, what level are you, and what's the level of your equipment?" "I'm not talented." Level 666, Weapon 666, Treasure 666. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Another example would be an organization announcing to the public that they had researched a brand new pill that could greatly increase the absorption of spiritual energy, and it was rated as level 888. Just thinking about it made him speechless. When Jun Changshao was serious, he was super serious. When he was despicable, he was super despicable. Senior. Standing before the study room, Sang Qingtian looked at the herbs on the prescription and awkwardly said, "I don't know much about herbs, so I don't know what's on it." Jun Changshao felt depressed. He was a heavenly law expert after all, yet he did not know anything about medicinal herbs. "Does anyone in your realm know?" Jun Changshao did not give up. Sang Qingtian said, "Senior, please wait for a moment. I will go and find a master who is proficient in medicinal herbs." They had already regarded Jun Changshao as the Qiankuan immortal, so they did not dare to neglect him. They summoned all the medicine masters of the Transcendent Hero's realm as soon as possible. All of a sudden, 30 people gathered in the elegant courtyard. Judging from their age and attire, as well as the strong smell of medicinal herbs, it was easy to guess that they must be experts proficient in the art of alchemy. "What's happening?" "I don't know." Why did Senior Sang summon us for no reason? Everyone was a little confused. Although Sang Qingtian was not the realm lord of the Transcendent Hero's realm, he was still a top-notch expert with the most authority. Now that he had invited them over, they were truly overwhelmed by the favor. "Senior." Right then, Sang Qingtian cupped his fists towards the room. "All the elixir masters of our realm are here." Everyone's eyes widened. A top-notch expert like Senior Sang would address someone as a senior and act so respectfully. If they had not seen it with their own eyes, they would not have believed it. Creak. The door suddenly opened and a voice rang out. "Come in." "Yes." Sang Qingtian turned around and shot a look at the elixir masters. Everyone hurried in carefully, cursing in their hearts. Who exactly was in the room? Holy sh*t. A young man? As soon as the 30 or so alchemists entered, they saw Jun Changshao sitting on a chair with his eyes closed, and their expressions became even more interesting. Judging from his skin and color, he was definitely younger than 100 years old. Was such a young man worthy of being addressed as a senior by Sang Qingtian? Although everyone was doubtful, they still behaved respectfully. "Kid," Jun Changshao said, "let them go. Take a look at the prescription." Senior Sang was at least 10,000 years old, yet he called him a child. "Yes." Sang Qingtian took out the prescription and said, "Take a look and see if you know anything about the herbs recorded on it. If you can find them or provide any clues, I'll reward you handsomely." When the alchemy grandmasters heard the words "there will be a heavy reward," their eyes immediately lit up, and then they swarmed around the table. This, after looking at it, they were all stunned. All the pill grandmasters present had thousands of years of experience, but they had never heard of the medicinal herbs recorded on it, let alone seen them. From their expressions, Jun Changshao naturally noticed, and he couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. Sigh. Was it so hard to have a child? Senior sang. A pill master said bitterly, "We don't know anything about the medicinal ingredients recorded on it." Trash. Sang Qingtian bellowed. Forget it. Jun Changshao waved his hand and said, "These herbs are too rare, and only a few people know about them. You can't blame them." "Don't worry, Senior," Sang Chengtian said. "I'll do my best to find these herbs for you." The extreme meritocracy realm was a relatively traditional martial arts world. In the 32nd universe, there were many alchemy worlds, and he might be able to find some clues. "There's no hurry," Jun Changshao said. "Take it slow." He was prepared to fight a protracted battle when he went out to look for herbs, so he was very relaxed. In the following days, Jun Changshao took rows of flowers to travel around the extreme meritocracy realm, experiencing different local customs, and admiring the wonders and beautiful scenery created by nature. This kind of carefree life had lasted for 1,000 years. Not only did the couple not feel bored, they even enjoyed it. A patriarch and a patriarch wife, but they didn't manage the sect and only cared about traveling. They really felt sorry for Deputy Patriarch Yuan Feng. One day, Jun Changshao, who was leisurely fishing by the lake, suddenly sensed many powerful auras rushing toward the extreme meritocracy realm, so he said with a smile, "So soon?" Pretending to be a legend overlord from Lin Tianyu would definitely cause a commotion and attract many forces. Just in time, Jun Changshao retracted his fishing rod and said, "I can ask about the herbs." Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Not long after, the space above the extreme meritocracy realm gradually distorted, and streams of light and battleships rushed in as if in a hurry to reincarnate. What's going on? The martial artists in the dimension were all stunned. They were living as usual, cultivating as usual, but suddenly a large number of martial artists came, and their auras were not ordinary. This was really a bit confusing. The Lord of Heavenly Meritocracy. The Lord of Haoying Realm. The Lord of Sister Longying Realm. The Lord of Great Meritocracy Realm. Hiss. Everyone gradually saw the appearance of the newcomers, and they were shocked to the extreme. They were all top figures in Lin Tianyu. Why would they suddenly come to the extreme meritocracy realm? Could it be that someone got into big trouble and was collectively targeted by the entire universe? Whoosh whoosh. Just when everyone was shocked, a vast and profound aura appeared, instantly covering the entire dimension and completely stabilizing the restless space. The extreme meritocracy realm had a limit. Now that so many big shots suddenly came, it definitely couldn't withstand it. Jun Changshao stabilized the main world's system with his heavenly cultivation. Even if there were more forces coming one after another, they couldn't shake it at all. This move really shocked the overlords of all the dimensions. At first, they still had some doubts, but now they immediately dispelled them and obediently retracted their auras. They all cupped their hands and said, "Greetings, Senior Universe." So many realm overlords from Lin Tianyu gathered in the extreme meritocracy realm, and they all bowed to Jun Changshao, who was sitting by the lake. The scene was too shocking. "Everyone." Jun Changshao stood up and said with his hands behind his back, "Please come down and have a chat." He was very calm and very elegant. It was really hard to imagine that this was the big B*TCH who led the Eternal Realm astray. Chapter 2013. My name is Red Phosphorus Lake. I'm a little panicked, because there are dozens of realm lords standing in front of me and they can evaporate my water with just a breath. Cough cough. Sang Qingtian stood in front of Jun Changshao and raised his head slightly. In terms of seniority, he was lower than the realm lord and weaker in terms of strength. Now that the senior was here, he had nothing to fear and could even be on equal footing with them. That felt really good. Senior Universe. A white-haired old man cupped his hands and said, "I heard that you have entered the land of immortality? Why did you suddenly return?" Let's not talk about that first. Jun Changshao said, let's talk business first. After that, Sang Qingtian strode forward and placed the list of herbs on the stone table. Senior Universe needs to find the herbs listed on it. I hope you can provide effective clues. Herbs? Everyone looked at each other. Although they were full of doubts, they still released their spiritual senses and fell into deep thought after looking at the list of herbs. Jun Changshao had been paying attention to their expressions. Seeing that they were all frowning, his heart turned cold again. Sigh. It's too difficult. The system said, it's okay if you can't find it. At least for your child, you can write some chapters. Senior Universe. The white-haired old man thought for a while and said, the herbs listed on this list should be found in the medicine spirit realm. Jun Changshao's eyes lit up. Senior. Sang Qingtian transmitted his voice. The medicine spirit realm is one of the most mysterious realms in Lin Tianyu. It is said that there are countless herbs and treasures that can bring living beings back to life. Bring living beings back to life? Jun Changshao said, that's a bit magical. Although Go Sheng was invincible now, he still couldn't bring living beings back to life. He could only rely on cheating to resurrect Xiao Ziji. Therefore, treasures that could bring the dead back to life were quite heaven-defying. Elder Lu's wife is still in the coffin. If I can find such a treasure, I might be able to bring her back to life. Thinking of this, Jun Changshao asked, where is the medicine spirit realm? The white-haired old man shook his head and said, this world is extremely mysterious. No one knows its location. Only those who are lucky enough to find it can find it. Not bad. Sang Qingtian said, indeed. Any other clues? Jun Changshao asked. That's all. Everyone said helplessly. All right. Jun Changshao waved his hand and several jars of wine appeared out of thin air in front of the big shots. He said, you've all come from afar, but this old man doesn't have much to entertain you. I can only brew this wine myself. I hope you won't mind. Over the past 1,000 years, Lan Kong had been brewing wine. He had even infused the power of celestial music into it, causing drunk or dreaming to have a qualitative leap. Moreover, it was also divided into many series. For example, it was suitable for ordinary people, suitable for middle and low-level martial artists, and suitable for high-level martial artists. The wine that Jun Changshao took out belonged to the high-end category. If it were to be measured by the brand and value of the secular world, it would definitely be the Mao Tai of the high martial arts world. Looking at the wine jars placed in front of them, the experts from the various existential planes hesitated. What if it was poisoned wine? If you don't drink it, I'll take it away, Jun Changshao said. Drink, drink, drink. The white-haired old man hurriedly opened the wine jar. The fragrance of the wine wafted in the forest. Everyone took a sniff and felt refreshed. Gulp. The white-haired old man could not care less about his identity. He raised his cup and drank the wine. The sweet wine entered his stomach. Under the stimulation of the celestial music, his consciousness, thoughts, and even his soul were deeply stimulated. He had an intuitive understanding of the profound meaning hidden in heaven and earth. However, the alcohol was a little strong. The white-haired old man's face turned red, and his body began to sway. He could not care less about embarrassing himself in public. He allowed the alcohol to stimulate his consciousness and began to comprehend the profound meaning in a frenzy. The more he immersed himself in it, the more obvious he was drunk. The big shots from the various dimensions waited for a while. Although the white-haired old man was a little drunk, he was shrouded in some kind of energy. Hence, they removed the seal and started to drink. A moment later, in the forest outside the red phosphorus lake, the top big shots from various dimensions were all swaying. They were all in a drunken state. This drunkenness was nothing more than superficial. In fact, they were in a particularly magical state at the moment. Once they sobered up, they would definitely benefit a lot. Sure enough, a few hours later, Everyone woke up from their drunken state and stood in the same place. All of them were ecstatic. Drinking drunk and dreaming did not make them break through, but the comprehension of the profound meaning of heaven and earth was obvious. Even spending hundreds or thousands of years to comprehend it might not have such an effect. This wine was heaven-defying. Everyone. This wine is called drunk and dreaming. You can drink it every day to comprehend the profound meaning of heaven and earth. Whoever can find the medicine spirit world for me will be rewarded with 10 jars. Jun Changshao could not find it by himself. After all, the universe was so big. If he prepared some benefits for them to find it, they should be able to find it quickly. We accept the order. The big shots of the various dimensions who had experienced the benefits said in unison. They hurriedly put the unfinished drunk and dreaming into their space rings and then left excitedly. It was not hard to imagine. When they returned home, Universe 32 would definitely be lively. Sure enough, a few days later, all the dimensions and the major forces began to act. Streaks of light and battleships spread out in all directions. Their task was very simple, that is, to find the medicine spirit world and get Senior Qiankuan's 10 jars of drunk and dreaming. With their strength, ordinary treasures of heaven and earth could not bring martial arts benefits, but the magical wine could, so it was very precious and important. The effect is not bad. Jun Changshao was still traveling in the extreme hero world, but he could always receive information from all the dimensions, so he touched his chin and said, after going back, I can let Lan Kong study it more. Maybe I can get rich by relying on drunk and dreaming. Swish. He opened the system skillfully and refreshed them all when he had nothing to do. There was a fixed number of times every month, and Jun Changshao had formed a habit. In the past there were no good things. Until today, when he refreshed for the last time, an item appeared in the item bar, called Medicine Spirit World Map. It was refreshed just like that? Jun Changshao held his head and collapsed. I sent out so many drunk and dreaming, isn't that, yes? The system said gloatingly, host is losing. Reading Site and Chapter 2014. Just as the experts of the Lin Tianyu region were searching for the medicine spirit world, Jun Changshao had already used the shop to get the map. Cheating. As one needed contribution points to buy it, it didn't take much effort to buy it. The map was quite old, and in terms of touch, it felt like a sheepskin scroll. Why would someone leave a map? Jun Changshao was confused. Most of the items bought in the shop were stolen. This meant that someone left the map behind on purpose, as if they were afraid that they couldn't find the way there. At this moment, Jun Changshao noticed that there was a small paragraph of special text on the bottom left corner of the map, so he said, "Translate it for me." The system said, "I don't need to translate, this is a surprise." Jun Changshao hollered, "Translate it for me, what is a surprise?" "Translate the text." Only then did the system understand and began to translate the words on the map, saying, I once planted a heavenly treasure called the soul-summoning fruit in the medicine spirit realm. Anyone who has this map can easily find it. Soul-calling fruit? Jun Changshao was confused. Can it bring the dead back to life? This deduction came from the word soul-calling. It should be, the system said. It was rare for the two of them to be on the same side and not bicker. It seems. Jun Changshao smiled. It is not just a map, it is a treasure map. After saying that, he started to study it carefully. This map was a little weird, there were no usual boxes or lines, no geographical location or coordinates, just a pentagram-like pattern and a black dot in the center. Jun Changshao rubbed his chin. It doesn't look like a map. After studying it for the whole night, his head was about to explode. What is it? Rose of Flowers was woken up, her hair messy as she got off the bed and stopped in front of Jun Changshao barefoot. She placed her hand on her husband's shoulder out of habit. Her charming eyes still had a hint of tiredness. This damn aura easily made one's heart beat faster. One had to say. Rose of Flowers was becoming more and more feminine. Jun Changxiao's looks were not bad either. Whether it was a boy or a girl, the children of these two would definitely be monstrous in terms of appearance. This map. Jun Changxiao rubbed his temples. I don't understand it at all. Oh. Rose of Flowers gently leaned up and rested her chin on his head. Then she looked at the map on the table and asked curiously, Is there anything that my husband doesn't know? Of course. Jun Changxiao said, There are many things I don't know. After 1,000 years of meditation and cultivation, he realized that there was no end to the path of martial arts. Although he had reached the peak, there were still many unknowns that needed to be explored. Let me take a look. Rose of Flowers looked at it carefully and gave her opinion. This doesn't look like a map. It looks more like a scene. Scene? You don't say, it does smell like that. After being reminded by Rose of Flowers, Jun Changxiao immediately realized that something was different. In particular, the pentagram was more like 5 natural scenes, or even more like 5 planes, arranged in a regular pattern around the black spot. I got it. This is a certain star sector. As long as we find the corresponding pentagram, we should be able to find the medicine spiritual realm. Let's go. Let's hurry up and find it. Jun Changxiao pulled Rose of Flowers and was about to leave when the latter hurriedly said, I'm still in my pajamas. This, in the living room, Sang Qingtian frowned. It was early in the morning, but he reeked of alcohol. That's right, he had drunk a whole bowl of drunk and dreaming yesterday, and the smell of alcohol had not dissipated yet. Senior, Sang Qingtian said, I have some impression of this place. Take me there. Since there were some clues, Jun Changxiao couldn't wait to reach the destination and look for the herbs in the prescription. However, Sang Qingtian said, this place is a top-secret forbidden area of Lintianyu. If you trespass, you will easily die. Jun Changxiao's eyes suddenly turned cold. Are you questioning my strength? Sang Qingtian was dumbfounded. That's right. This is Senior Qiankuan, a legendary expert. How can I use the mentality of an ordinary person to measure him? No. Sang Qingtian hurriedly explained. I say no more, Jun Changxiao said. Take me there quickly. Okay. Every universe had mysterious secret realms or forbidden areas, and Lin Tianyu was no exception. In fact, there were more of them. In fact, secret realms and forbidden areas were more like instance dungeons. Although they were full of danger, they were also accompanied by opportunities. Since ancient times, countless living beings had died, and countless people had achieved meteoric success. That was not right. Under Sang Qingtian's lead, Jun Changxiao stopped at the forbidden area where the greatest danger and opportunity coexisted in Lin Tianyu. From God's perspective, there were 5 planes around the entrance, which vaguely outlined the angle of a pentagram. That's right. Jun Changxiao took out the sheepskin scroll. After comparing it a few times, he said, This is the place. Let's go. Let's go in. Sang Qingtian took a deep breath and was about to follow, but Jun Changxiao added, Wait outside. Okay. He really didn't go in. He stood at the entrance and watched the two of them go in until they completely disappeared into the darkness. His eyes were filled with joy and worry. He was happy that he didn't have to risk entering the forbidden area. He was worried that he couldn't see Senior Qiankuan create the forbidden area with his own eyes. Sigh. Sang Qingtian sighed. I'm in a dilemma. Inside the forbidden area was a passageway that looked like a corridor. The surrounding space was distorted, and it felt like they were traveling through time and space. What hadn't Jun Changxiao and Rose of Flowers seen before? Therefore, they were already used to it and didn't even feel the slightest bit of emotion while walking in it. After walking for about an hour, there was a white luster at the end. When the two of them passed through it, they stopped at a place that looked like a cliff. There's no way out? Jun Changxiao was surprised. Husband. Rose of Flowers pointed to the wall on the side and said, What's that? Jun Changshao looked over and found that there was a square pit in the middle of the wall. It looked like some kind of secret compartment, or wait a minute. Judging from the size and specifications, why did it match the sheepskin scroll so well? Jun Changshao walked over, hurriedly took out the map, and then carefully stuck it on. Not to mention, it did match very well. Buzz! At this moment, the wall and the ground suddenly trembled, and a rolling heat wave surged out from the bottom of the cliff. Roar! A deafening roar came from the bottom of the cliff, giving people the feeling that it came from the depths of hell. Step back! Jun Changshao frowned. Rows of flowers stood behind him obediently. Although the surrounding atmosphere was a little depressing, she was actually not worried at all. She was even curious about whether there was some kind of special demonic beast hiding here. Hoo-hoo! Right at this moment, demonic chi spread out from the bottom of the cliff. Soon, they saw a huge head rushing up, followed by 2 arms and a body. Finally, it stood before them like a huge mountain. In terms of form, it looked like a giant, but in terms of color and facial features, it was closer to a demon. Human, the monster said coldly, you are courting death. No. Why did the eyes of this young man, who was as weak as an ant, shine brightly? Rows of flowers also noticed Jun Changshao's expression, so she said speechlessly, such an ugly demonic beast. Are you going to capture it and make it the guardian beast? Read on in Chapter 2015. Rows of Flowers was right. Jun Changshao was tempted by the sudden appearance of the giant monster. It was undeniable that it was a little ugly, but from its aura, it was not weaker than a heavenly mystery. Take it down. Put it in the sect of all times as a gatekeeper. For 1,000 years, Jun Changshao had done this many times. When he passed by a plain and encountered a special beast, he subdued it and used it as a gatekeeper. Damn it! The monster did not realize that it was in danger and said angrily, What's with that look? I love your eyes, Jun Changshao said. Ugh! The monster almost vomited. Jun Changshao said, The abyss leads to the medicine spirit world? That's right. The monster said coldly. Found it. The smile on Jun Changshao's face became brighter. This angered the monster. It raised its arms and slammed down, roaring, I'm guarding this place, you won't be able to move an inch. Ho ho! The mountain-like palm pressed down, stirring up a cold gale. The monster was indeed powerful. If it was Sang Qingtian, he might not be able to take it. However, the one standing in front of it was Jun Changshao. As the founder of the Eternal Realm, and having spent 1,000 years under the Great Spring and Autumn technique, his strength had reached the peak. Smack! The moment the palm pressed down, Jun Changshao raised his hand and used his middle and index fingers to receive it. Energy ripples that could be seen with the naked eye spread out and hit the surrounding stone walls. Rose Flower stood at the back, her hair dancing in the wind. However, she was not affected at all. With her husband around, she was safe. Ho ho! Ho ho! The hand seemed to be frozen in place, allowing the energy to press down, but it was still unable to move Jun Changshao's 2 fingers. How is this possible? The monster widened its eyes and angrily channeled power into its arm, trying to crush the human in front of it into powder. Unfortunately, no matter how it tried, it was unable to sink down. Jun Changshao's 2 fingers were like pillars that held up the sky and earth. Who? Of course, the monster wasn't willing to give up. It raised its other hand and pressed down, but the human was still standing there with a smile on his face. He had a mental breakdown. Damn it! The monster retracted its palms and breathed in and out heavily. The attributes of the world around it surged into its body. It let out a savage roar and pressed its hands down with terrifying power. There's no point in struggling. Jun Changshao shook his head. With a light tap of his toes, he charged towards the 2 palms and evaded them with unpredictable movements. He stopped in front of the monster and slowly raised his hands. Outside the forbidden area, Sang Qingtian asked worriedly, Is Senior Qianquan all right? Rumble. Suddenly, a deafening rumble sounded out from within, and it startled him to the point of hurriedly retreating a few kilometers while his back broke out in cold sweat. Hoo-hoo! At the same time, billowing waves of air surged out from the forbidden land and spread throughout the vast universe. Sang Qingtian's expression changed drastically, especially when he sensed the energy wreaking havoc in his body. His scalp went from numb to exploding. This commotion, this aura, it was truly terrifying. Who? The first person that came to Sang Qingtian's mind was Senior Qianquan. As far as he knew, no one in Lin Tianyu could reach such a terrifying level. Ka. At this moment, a cracking sound was heard. Sang Qingtian's eyes gradually widened and he exclaimed, "The top secret forbidden area cracked." That's right. This forbidden area that had existed in Lin Tianyu for a long time suddenly suffered a terrifying explosion of power and finally cracked. Boom! Another explosion was heard. The top secret forbidden area that could still be salvaged suddenly suffered heavy damage and cracked even faster. Oh no! Sang Qingtian exclaimed and immediately turned to flee. His reaction was quite fast. If he was a little later, he might rumble. All of a sudden, a strong explosion occurred at the entrance of the top secret forbidden area. The surrounding space instantly collapsed into pieces and the shockwave instantly spread far away. Puff! Although Sang Qingtian dodged very quickly, he still couldn't outrun the shockwave produced by the explosion. Therefore, he was still affected. Not only did he fly out, but his meridians and internal organs were also injured. What's that? The martial artists scattered in various areas of Lin Tianyu clearly heard the explosion of the forbidden area and were shocked. It's very far away. It seems to be in the top secret forbidden area. Let's go and take a look. Swish, swish, swish. In an instant, experts from countless planes flew to the top secret forbidden area. It wasn't hard to imagine that when they arrived at the scene, they would definitely be like Sang Qingtian, standing on the spot as if they were struck by lightning and unable to recover for a long time. What did that mean? Because the top secret forbidden area was gone. Because the space within hundreds of miles had collapsed. In the central area where the wind was howling and order was in chaos, rows of flowers hovered in midair and shook her head. Another forbidden area was destroyed. Sang Qingtian swallowed his saliva and continued to release his spiritual thoughts. He found that Senior Qianquan was standing in front of his wife and in front of a huge demonic beast. Why does this demonic beast look so much like the chaotic demon king recorded in the ancient books? If the word "like" was removed, it would be a chaotic demon king. Could it be? Sang Qingtian's brain worked quickly and he said, that was the cause of the commotion just now? As an ancient-level creature, it was definitely powerful. However, it was a little exaggerated to destroy the top-secret forbidden area. Wait, there were two dents on this guy's face. Was he beaten up? Thump! At that moment, half of the chaotic demon king's body and head fell to the ground like mud. The top-secret forbidden area was no longer there. All that was left was the limited area where Jun Changshao was standing and the abyss in front of him. You have to be gentle so that you don't get beaten up. Jun Changshao squatted down and placed one hand on the chaotic demon king's head. He signed the contract in a domineering manner. The signing of the contract required the consent of both parties. However, the chaotic demon king fainted after being punched twice. There was no need to ask. Swoosh. Soon, the contract was signed. Jun Changshao took out a ball from his space ring and kept the chaotic demon king inside. Don't ask how it got there. If you ask, you bought it from the mall. Let's go. Jun Changshao said, let's go down. Okay. The two jumped off the cliff hand in hand. Sang Qingtian, who was standing far away, was dumbfounded. The top-secret forbidden area was destroyed by Senior Qianquan and an ancient demon king was subdued by him. It was too terrifying. Legendary. As expected of a legend. At that moment, Sang Qingtian's admiration for Jun Changshao was like a surging river. Xiao! Xiao! At this moment, the powerhouses closest to the top-secret Forbidden Land rushed over. When they saw the collapsed space and the abyss that existed in the universe, they were all dumbfounded. Sorry. Sang Qingtian turned around and said, "You guys came late and missed Senior Qiankuan's move." There was obvious pride on his face, as though he was telling everyone that it was a pity that they didn't see it, but he saw it. Read on and Chapter 2016. The Strongest Sect of Eternity has released a new book, I'm the Second Generation. Currently typing, please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. Chapter 2017. In the extreme north of the Eternal Region, there was a world of ice and snow called the Ice World. Swoosh! Swoosh! A 14 or 15-year-old girl was cultivating. Her sword light swept up layers of snow. Her name was Emomushi. She was the daughter of an ordinary family. She became the disciple of an expert by chance and embarked on the path of martial arts. Because she was very compatible with the ice element, she broke through to the revolving Dan realm in a few years. She could be considered a genius. After a while, Emomushi kept her sword and bowed respectfully. Master, disciple has successfully comprehended the 1,000-heart-chilling sword art. I wonder if I can participate in the sacred war 10 years from now? On top of the ice mountain in front of him stood a woman with a graceful figure. Although her face was covered by a white veil, making it difficult to see her appearance, her body exuded an aura that was even colder than the surroundings. Far from it, the cold girl said indifferently. There was no emotion in her words. She was as cold as the ice mountain under her feet. Emomushi was used to it. She had been cultivating with her master for 3 years and it had always been like this. Those who are qualified to participate in the sacred war are all top geniuses. Therefore, you must break through to the truth-seeking realm in 10 years. The girl said again, Truth-seeking realm? Emomushi thought, that's far beyond my reach. Remember, the girl continued, ice element martial artists must have a calm heart. If there are any ties, it will eventually become an obstacle on the path of martial arts. Emomushi said, I will remember Master's teachings. Maybe it was because her honored master had suddenly said so much to Lingbuer that she mustered up the courage to ask weakly, Honored Master is so powerful, is it because your heart is like still water, with no worries? No. Ah. This answer surprised Emomushi. His master was also an ice-type powerhouse, and he had even demonstrated to him the ability to freeze an entire plane with a wave of his hand. Wasn't his heart as still as water? Mushi. The girl said, the most unforgettable thing in the world is love. In the future, when you go out to train, don't fall in love with men. Otherwise, you will harm yourself. Disciple understands. Emomushi thought, Master must have fallen in love. After saying that, he secretly glanced at the bracelet on his master's wrist and muttered in his heart, It's obviously a very ordinary treasure, but Master cares so much about it. I'm afraid it's a gift from the person in love. This girl was very meticulous. Let's go. The woman said, Follow me back to the sect. Sect? Emomushi was astonished. I am the eldest disciple of the sect of all times. You are my disciple, so naturally, you are also a disciple of the sect, the woman said. Sect of all times? Emomushi had never heard of it before. He came from an ordinary background, and after he found a master, he came to the world of ice and snow to cultivate. Naturally, he had never heard of the legendary sect that shook the eternal domain. Swoosh, on this day, the world of ice flickered with resplendent white light, piercing through heaven and earth, not dissipating for a long time. A thatched hut in the countryside. Smoke curled up from the chimney. Straighten your posture. In the clean courtyard, a bearded middle-aged man in rough clothes said with his hands behind his back. Yes. Li Guiyuan, who was about 3 or 4 years old, hurriedly straightened his posture. Although he was still a child, his posture was very accurate. One look and anyone could tell that he was made for practicing martial arts. Stand for 2 hours. Yes. His father's words were an order. Li Guiyuan did not dare to disobey. Husband. At this time, a woman with delicate features and dressed in plain clothes walked out and complained, Guiyuan is still a child. The path of martial arts must be nurtured from a young age, the man in rough clothes said. Mother. Li Guiyuan smiled, I'm not tired. This child was very sensible. His mother shook her head and returned to the kitchen to prepare breakfast. 2 hours later, the little fellow relaxed and sat on the ground. He wiped the sweat off his forehead and smiled. Father, tell me the story of the patriarch of the sect of all times again. Sure. The man in rough clothes sat down and rubbed his son's head, smiling. Your name was given by the patriarch of the sect of all times. It comes from the setting sun on a lotus hat, and the mountains alone returning to the distance. Really? The little fellow was so excited that he almost jumped up. Doraemon expressed that with Go Xing's IQ, it was impossible for him to come up with such an elegant name. There was definitely a problem. Although he was only 3 years old, unlike Emo Mushi, Li Guiyuan often fell asleep listening to the stories of the sect of all times. He especially worshipped the sect leader. Unexpectedly, he was the one who gave his name. Father, Li Guiyuan said excitedly, do you know the patriarch of the sect of all times? Yes. Wow. Father is amazing. The man in rough clothes used his small hand to touch the tip of his son's nose, smiling. Father will bring you to the sect of all times, okay? Isn't the sect of all times very far away from us? Li Guiyuan said blankly. Close your eyes. The man in rough clothes said with a face full of love. Li Guiyuan did as he was told. In an instant, he felt the sky turn dark. When he opened his eyes again, his bright eyes gradually widened. In his field of vision was a towering huge palace, surrounded by clouds and mist. It was just like the fairyland that his father mentioned. The big sign engraved with the words unyielding bones was especially dazzling. Son. The voice of the man in rough clothes came. This is the sect of all times. The little fellow was so shocked that he did not recover for a long time. At this time, a few sect disciples wearing flirtatious clothes walked over and carefully sized up Li Guiyuan, who was in a daze. They said in surprise, Second senior brother, your son looks too much like you. It's like you were carved from the same mold. Nonsense. Li Tian, who was carrying a camera, happened to pass by. He glared at his junior brothers and said, Of course second senior brother's disciple looks like second senior brother. Don't tell me he looks like. Senior brother, be careful. Someone exclaimed. Swoosh. At this time, the happy football flew close to the ground at high speed. When it reached his crotch, it suddenly rushed up. When it was about to hit his chin, Li Tian looked at the camera calmly and shrugged. A familiar smell. Boom! Thousands of miles away, after confirming that he had hit the target, Li Fei slowly retracted his leg and said, This is the consequence of not knowing how to speak. One black and two black roared, You kicked the ball first. What he said after was just a coincidence. Father, Li Guiyuan finally came back to his senses. He turned to look at his father and found that he had taken off his rough clothes and changed into a high-quality sect uniform. Son. Li Qingyang put his hand on his head and looked at the plaque hanging in the hall. He said seriously, Father is the second disciple of the sect of all times. The stone slabs under your feet and the buildings you see were all built by Father. Boom. Li Guiyuan exploded. My father is the second disciple of the sect of all times. From today onwards, you are the second disciple of the sect of all times. As your father, I hope that you will diligently practice martial arts and wholeheartedly assist the future young patriarch. This sentence was deeply imprinted in Li Guiyuan's heart. Even after he became an adult, he still remembered his father's teachings and waited for the young patriarch. Even if he was later killed by the Jianghu again, the story of the second generation was still quietly carried on in a place where the readers could not see. More than a month later, many of the characters were a little unfamiliar to him. God knows how long the next update would take. Chapter 2018. The Strongest Sect of Eternity. New book. My master is invincible, currently typing, please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. Chapter 2019. After Shen Qianxiu brought his disciple down the mountain, he started to do meaningful things. As there was no standard for the side mission, he started from helping others. In the end, he did not get anything after working for a whole day. Is this not meaningful enough? Shen Qianxiu was puzzled. Or was it too low? All right, let them get rid of the thugs and protect the innocent. The next day, Shen Qianxiu ordered his disciple to go into the wilderness and search for bandits nearby. Others were afraid of encountering them and could not wait to hide, but he took the initiative to search for them. That was not right. In order to complete the mission, he had to look for trouble. The leaves on the ground rustled as they were stepped on. Tai Daju walked in front, his ears listening to everything, his eyes looking in all directions. His expression was very serious. So professional. Shang Xiaoyan, who was following behind, thought. It was the first time he saw his eldest senior brother so serious. As expected, those who could become master's disciples were definitely not ordinary people. Swoosh. At this moment, Tai Daju stopped and raised his hand. Leng Xingquan hurriedly stopped. Because there were often ferocious beasts in the wilderness, he showed the caution of an assassin. Eldest senior brother, what's wrong? Shang Xiaoyan asked in a low voice. Tai Daju replied, I smell blood. Blood? Shang Xiaoyan sniffed and only smelled the smell of wilting vegetation. He was about to ask when he saw his eldest senior brother squatting in front of a tree with an unknown herb in his hand. He was about to swallow it with saliva. Eldest senior brother. Don't eat anything. He was about to stop him, but the herb had already been swallowed. He could even hear the sound of chewing. Shang Xiaoyan was speechless. He dared to eat it without knowing if it was poisonous. Leng Xingquan frowned and said, 3-step poisonous grass. Shang Xiaoyan panicked. Just from the name alone, one could tell that this was definitely a poisonous herb. Eldest senior brother, quick! Spit it out. It was too late. Tai Daju not only chewed the 3-step poisonous grass, but also swallowed the juice. He then closed his eyes and said, Delicious. It's over, it's over. Shang Xiaoyan said anxiously, Hurry up and call master. It's too late, Leng Xingquan said calmly. If you accidentally eat this poison, you will die within 3 steps. Shang Xiaoyan broke down. At the same time, he wanted to correct his third junior brother's words. How could eldest senior brother eat it by mistake? He ate it on purpose, and he even ate it with relish. Pooh! At this moment, Tai Daju started foaming at the mouth and fell to the ground with his hands around his neck. It was obvious that the poison had broken out. What should we do? Shang Xiaoyan panicked a little. Leng Xingquan was very calm. He walked over with large strides and carried Tai Daju on his back. We will die within 3 steps, so we won't take 3 steps. You can do that? Give it a try. Shang Xiaoyan was speechless when he said that he would try, which meant that he was not sure. There seemed to be something wrong with third junior brother's way of thinking. Needless to say, it was quite effective. Leng Xingquan carried Tai Daju and walked back. After walking for about 10 steps, he was still spitting saliva, showing no signs of dying from the poison. Not bad. Shang Xiaoyan was relieved. He had to admit that eldest senior brother had a tough life. Whoosh! Whoosh! Just as they were about to walk out of the forest, more than 10 figures suddenly appeared from the shadows and blocked their way. A one-eyed middle-aged man carrying a saber stepped on a rock and said with a sinister smile, "You're here, and you still want to leave?" Judging from their appearance, they were obviously bandits. "Big brother," the subordinate said with a smile, "we were about to change places, but someone came to us. The guy on your back is also stupid. He actually dared to eat the 3 steps poisonous grass." From this sentence, it was not difficult to tell that the 3 of them had long been targeted. Same old rules. The one-eyed boss held his saber horizontally and said loudly, "Pay up and you'll live or die." Shang Xiaoyan said in a low voice, "Third junior brother, you take eldest senior brother away first. I'll cover you." Plop. Lung Xingquan threw Tai Dezhu to the ground and slowly pulled out his sword. He looked at the one-eyed boss and said coldly, "Pay up and you'll live or die." Shang Xiaoyan was stunned. "Is third junior brother going to rob us?" The one-eyed boss grinned and said, "Martial artist." He did not panic, because he had more people on his side. Moreover, they even dared to eat the 3 steps poisonous grass. Even if they were martial artists, they were still fledglings that had just entered the pugilistic world. "Boss." The subordinate's eyes lit up. "This sword is of good quality. It should sell for a good price." "Then what are we waiting for?" The one-eyed boss said, "Hurry up and greet them." Yes. More than 10 subordinates surrounded them in unison. They did not attack directly. Instead, they took out all kinds of hidden weapons from their sleeves. Although Shang Xiaoyan and Lung Xingquan looked very young, what if they were really capable? So long-range attacks were the safest. Cautious. Lung Xingquan put down his sword, the tip of the sword sticking to the ground. There was no emotion in his eyes. His murderous intent was gradually released. Unfortunately, he was only at level 1 of the Qi gathering state. His intimidating aura was much weaker now. The one-eyed boss sensed that this person was a little unusual. He immediately ordered, "All of you attack!" Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In an instant, hidden weapons flew from all directions. Lung Xingquan closed his eyes. The lightning flash sword will in his dantian gushed out and flowed along his meridians into his sword-wielding hand. Swish, swish, swish. Zzz. Sword chi burst forth. Lightning surged. Ding, 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 ding. The flying hidden weapons were all deflected. At the same time, Lung Xingquan flashed past with his sword in hand. He stood straight like a mountain behind the one-eyed boss and the others. Clang. He sheathed his sword, his long hair dancing in the wind. One word, handsome. What a fast sword. Shang Xiaoyan crossed his hands. His skin returned to normal. He had obviously blocked many hidden weapons. "Senior." Lung Xingquan said calmly, "Search them." As soon as he said search, the one-eyed boss and more than 10 subordinates fell to the ground. Their necks all had sword wounds of the same size. They were all dead? Shang Xiaoyan's eyes widened. These bandits did not have much ability. He could fight a group of them alone. However, killing them in an instant would be ridiculous. Lung Xingquan was very excited. It felt great to use the lightning flash sword will for the first time. In fact, the speed and strength of the explosion were even stronger than before his cultivation was crippled. No wonder swordsmen yearned to comprehend the sword will. It could really bring about earth-shattering changes. Ding! Eradicating bandits is very meaningful. Outside the mountains, Shin Qianqiu heard a lowly's voice. He laughed and said, "Sure enough, Master." At this moment, Shang Xiaoyan ran out of the forest with Tai Dezhu on his back. He said anxiously, "Quick, save eldest senior. He seems to be dying." Puff puff. Zzz. He was foaming at the mouth, and blood splattered everywhere. Why was he vomiting blood? Because, when Shin Qianqiu kicked out the poison, Tai Dezhu jumped up and shouted, "All the hidden weapons you shot out are F** king stabbing me." Shang Xiaoyan said apologetically, Junior will pay attention next time. Ling Xingquan stood at the side without saying a word. It seemed like he was still reminiscing that super cool feeling. Let's go. Shin Qianxiu said, follow me to punish evil.